Chapter 1004. Oh no, he has used the Genesis space. The fighting souls only fight based on their battle instincts. They don't know how to restrain their attacks or combine them to attack the space. Mi Gong's face was solemn. He had heard about the testing space of the demonic academy. The longer it was used, the more terrifying it would be. If it were them, they might be able to break it. However, the fighting souls would only increase the power of the Genesis space. The fifth level of the Soul Martial Hall can't trap him. Lord Yi said. I wonder what the Pavilion Master will do. In the Genesis space, the fighting souls attacked the sword shadows crazily. The result was obvious. In the blink of an eye, the number of sword shadows in the Genesis space multiplied and formed a few giant dragons. No matter how strong the fighting souls were, they would eventually run out of spiritual energy and die in the space. The fifth hall, the Divine General Hall, was broken. Lu Chen did not restore the space. Instead, he spread his wings and hovered above the space, allowing the sword shadows to split apart on their own. However, this time, the waiting time was longer than before. Zhongxian Gu did not announce the opening of the sixth hall. After waiting for a few minutes, the spectators could not sit still anymore. Why hasn't the sixth hall been opened? In the space created by the solipsistic, there are more and more sword shadows. Who can go in and not die? Could it be that he is afraid of the solipsistic's Genesis space? This skill is too overpowered. Furthermore, it specializes in countering fighting souls with only one consciousness. Even if the sixth hall is opened, I'm afraid it will be over soon. How many tricks does the solipsistic have that he hasn't used yet? If we fight against him in the future, we must not give him the chance to use this skill. Up till now, Lu Chen had used up a lot of energy. He had used up a lot of energy after breaking through the void a few times. With the addition of the Genesis space, he was not far from running out of energy. However, Lu Chen was not worried at all. The Genesis space had been formed. The next problem was not his, but Zhongxian Ji's. Perhaps it was due to the discussions of the spectators, but the sixth heaven was finally opened. 256 6-star Theo the Great. As soon as they appeared, these fighting souls attacked the hundreds of thousands of sword shadows fiercely. Upon seeing this sight, Mi Gong could only shake his head helplessly. Solipsistic, this guy, actually used the creation space to perfectly restrain the Soul Martial Hall. There are more and more sword shadows. Unless we can break through this creation space, there is no chance of winning. No matter if it's the original fighting soul or the split fighting soul, there's no need to talk about their fighting instincts. However, how could a fighting soul know any concept skills? If you don't know this kind of skill and don't know how to break open space, you're just a sitting duck. Below, the battle souls were fighting fiercely in the creation space. These battle souls were quite strong, and the number of sword shadows quickly increased by dozens of times. The powerful fighting soul that was usually feared by many experts had turned into an idiot at this moment. It could not understand why there were more and more sword shadows. The last time I reached the sixth level of the Soul Martial Hall, I tried my best but still couldn't pass it. In the end, these war souls are now being toyed around by solipsistic. This is cheating. Last time, he didn't cheat. This time, he finally cheated. How could he pass the Soul Martial Hall like this? I can't accept it. How could he get the treasure so easily? No, if he keeps fighting like this, I'm afraid the Soul Martial Hall will be broken through by solipsistic in one move. In the end, he's still flying in the sky and watching the show. This reminds me of the low-level heavenly regions. I feel like I've found a loophole in the system. The final result was without a doubt. A few minutes later, the sixth hall, Killing God Palace, passed. The people from the Temple of All Gods were about to collapse. The Soul Martial Hall that they were so proud of, someone was farming treasures here, what should we do? We can't let him continue like this. What can we do? There are so many people watching. Can we force him to stop? If this spreads out, where will our Zhongxian Gu put our face? He's clearly using the battle souls to not know any status skills. It's also because his creation space is too strange. If it were any other status skills, he wouldn't be able to farm the Soul Martial Hall here. Yi Tian's face was full of shock. Their dean, in a fit of anger, was farming the Soul Martial Hall. He turned to look at Lu Yi. Miss Lu, was your boss also this shameless in the past? Oh no, was he also this quick-witted? Lu Yi shook her head. Our boss usually doesn't bully people and rarely kills people, unless the other party angers him. There were a few times when boss killed the opponent, but this time he probably felt that he couldn't kill Zhongxian Ji's pavilion master, so he changed his method. Yi Tian nodded. Nameless did say before that he didn't plan to use this move, Lu Yi said. Actually, the creation space is one of boss trump cards. He won't use it unless it's absolutely necessary. But Zhongxian Gu angered him, so he didn't care so much. This time, I'm afraid Zhongxian Gu won't be able to get off the stage. This creation space has its own system, and the battle souls don't know how to crack it. If this goes on, even the Soul Martial Hall will be farmed by him. Lu Yi knew that Yi Tian was worried that Zhongxian Gu would find trouble with Lu Chen or the Demonic Academy in the future. She thought for a while and said, Senior Yi Tian, you don't have to worry about this. Our boss should have a plan. Now let's see how Zhongxian Gu handles it. Solipsistic flew in the air for a while. Without doing anything, he directly passed through the 6th floor of the Soul Martial Hall. At this time, he was floating beside the disciple who was reporting. Hey, we've reached the next floor. This. You still want to continue? Isn't your goal the 6th floor? Now that you've passed it, you can already get double the treasures. Lu Chen sneered, Brother, do you think I'm stupid? You saw it yourself. I'm chatting with you while I passed the 6th floor. Why wouldn't I continue? Even if you used your toes to think, you would know that the rewards on the 7th floor would definitely be better. Oh, the 8th floor would definitely be better. Hey, what's the highest floor of your Soul Martial Hall? The disciple's forehead was oozing with beads of sweat. This guy seemed to be getting greedier. He directly asked what the highest floor was. The highest one, the 9th floor, only the 9th floor. Sigh, that's not enough. Forget it, the 9th floor is the 9th floor. I won't force you to build another floor. Lu Chen shook his head helplessly, I still have something to do back at the academy. You guys hurry up. Another few minutes passed, and the 7th floor of the Soul Martial Hall arrived late. This bunch of 7 stars Theo the Great were unlucky. Just as they condensed their bodies, they were attacked by the overwhelming sword shadows. At this time, it was no longer a matter of whether or not they wanted to attack the sword shadows. If they didn't attack the sword shadows would attack them. The disciple who was reporting the news glanced at Lu Chen. At this time, this guy had already put away his spear and the infinite demon god sword and was focused on watching the show. Wow! Astral form skill. That war soul is so strong. Lu Chen exclaimed, if I were to fight with him, it would be very difficult to deal with him alone. Strong? What was the use of being strong? When faced with attacks that only increased and did not decrease, no matter how strong the war soul was, it would still be exhausted. TSK, TSK, TSK. This cannon shot is not bad. It actually has an ice element attack. The strength of the split war souls seems to be much stronger than the original war soul. Lu Chen sighed, for this wave, if I were to face them head-on, I'm afraid my chances of winning are not high. The Zhongxian Gu disciple beside him was already sweating profusely. What was the use of him saying so much? He was now standing with him to watch the battle. Those who did not know the situation would think that he was just a spectator. The stronger the war souls were, the more terrifying the creation space would become. If this continued, he would be able to easily break through the 9th floor. Chapter 1005. Due to the impact of the celestial heavenly punishment array, Cloud Immortal Mountain's spirit source is currently fluctuating, the announcing disciple suddenly said to everyone in a clear voice. Everyone was at a loss when they heard this. The Soul Martial Hall's spirit source is malfunctioning. Currently, the Soul Martial Hall is temporarily suspended. When he said the last sentence, everyone suddenly realized what was going on. After all this time, they just want to temporarily suspend the Soul Martial Hall. I knew it. How could a place like Cloud Immortal Mountain cause fluctuations in its spirit source just because of a mountain protection battle? This excuse is really strong. They actually want to temporarily suspend the Soul Martial Hall. But then again, Cloud Immortal Mountain also wants to save face. If they continue to let the solipsistic spirit source continue, they will indeed be embarrassed. It wasn't that these spectators were smart. The main reason was that Zhongxian Gu was really helpless against Lu Chen. They had no choice but to find such a perfunctory excuse to temporarily suspend the Soul Martial Hall. Yi Tian looked indignant. What are you doing? Playing tricks again. Can't the great Zhongxian Gu be a little more open? In the air above the Soul Martial Hall, an old man in a white robe flew to Lu Chen's side. The announcing disciple hurriedly bowed. Mabe Immortal King. Mabe ignored him and turned to Lu Chen with a smile. Nameless Director, the Soul Martial Hall's spirit source is malfunctioning. How about Nameless Director come to Sengoku's hall to rest for a while? Lu Chen frowned slightly. I'm not particularly tired. This. Hahaha, Nameless Director, please don't worry. The spirit source in your space is self-sufficient. It will become more powerful if you leave it there for a while. We won't touch it without your permission. Besides, who knows, maybe we can come up with a more energy-efficient way to clear the stage in Sengoku's hall. The Mabe Immortal King kept winking at Lu Chen, making Lu Chen uncomfortable. Nameless Dean, let's go. Have some tea and take a rest. In any case, this Soul Martial Hall won't be able to recover any time soon, Mabe said as he pulled Lu Chen away. Wait. Lu Chen said. My friend is coming too. Oh, no problem. Let's go down first. The Sengoku Palace was located halfway up Mount Yunxian. It was built against the mountain and faced the sea of clouds. It was magnificent. In reality, any building in Zhongxiangu was not a place that outsiders could easily enter. Even for the many deans, almost all of their matters were discussed and held in Juxian Pavilion. Other buildings were forbidden from entering, not to mention a place like Sengoku Hall. Not many of Zhongxian Ji's inner disciples were qualified to enter this place. Yi Tian, Long Xiang, and Saiji followed behind Lu Chen and Mabe. Looking at the high dome, they felt like farmers entering the city. Old Yi, to be honest, I have been in the 6th heaven for more than 200 years, but I have never entered Sengoku Hall. Long Xiang said. Tisk, tsk, tsk. Look at the star C pattern on the roof. It's so real. Don't break anything. It is said that the vases placed randomly in Sengoku Hall are rare magical weapons that can't be bought with spirit stones. The foundation of Zhongxiangu is not something that ordinary people can imagine. Following Mabe, they passed through the hall. Behind this majestic hall, there was actually a garden pavilion. The environment was beautiful, birds were singing, and flowers were fragrant. Lu Chen looked at the sea of clouds in the distance. While walking among the flowers, the spring water gurgled beside him, while admiring the beautiful scenery. This group of fellows from the Pavilion of Immortals really know how to enjoy themselves. When will they get one in the Divine Magic Academy? At the front of the pavilion, there were already extremely sage-like old men waiting there. When they saw Lu Chen and the others coming over, they stood up one after another. Ma Bei led Lu Chen and the others into the pavilion. Nameless. You don't know them yet. Let me introduce you. These three are our Zongxian Ji's Sengoku. This is Sengoku Ju Chen. This is Sengoku of the Seven Ministers. This is Princess Hibiscus. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Ma Bei. Everyone, I don't need to introduce these people. They are the nameless dean of the Demonic Academy who just passed through the Heavenly Divine Punishment Array. These are the teachers of the Demonic Academy. The three Sengoku clasped their fists towards Lu Chen and the others. Nameless dean, everyone, please take a seat. Come, serve the tea. Several Zongxian Gu female disciples served tea and placed it in front of Lu Chen and the others. Facing the four Sengoku, Yi Tian and the others were a little reserved. However, Lu Chen was not affected at all. He picked up the teacup and looked at it. This tea isn't poisoned, right? After all, you Zongxian Gu don't like to do things openly. Yi Tian had just picked up his teacup and was about to taste Zongxian Ji's tea. He took a sip and was intoxicated. When he heard Lu Chen's words, he spat out the tea in his mouth. This guy really dared to say that. If it were any other time, these four Sengoku would have already crushed him to death. However, the four Sengoku had different expressions. They even had murderous intent in their eyes, but they had no choice but to suppress it. Ma Bei forced himself to laugh awkwardly. Nameless, you really know how to joke. This tea is produced in the inner mountains of Yunxian Mountain. It's called Bodhi Drunk. It's brewed with rootless mountain spring. It's fragrant, and one sip will make you salivate. Normally, we wouldn't even bear to drink it ourselves. Lu Chen nodded. Is it that amazing? Then I'll try it too. It's really not bad. To be honest, this tea was indeed sweet and refreshing. The awkward atmosphere finally eased a little with Lu Chen's praise. Nameless, I heard that you broke through the Immortals' Heavenly Punishment Array. You're indeed a hero from a young age. Lu Chen raised his hand and stopped Ma Bei from continuing. Ma Bei Immortal King, we're all sensible people. There's no need to talk about such unimportant things. I don't have as much time as you do. After I'm done here, I still have to return to the academy. What exactly do you want to talk to me about? Lu Chen put down his teacup and looked at the three Sengoku. Long Xiang and Saiji felt goosebumps all over their bodies. Was this how the dean talked to the Sengoku? Even if they were ordinary Zongxian Gu disciples, when they went to the major academies, the academy leaders would treat them with great importance. However, here, not only were there Zongxian Gu disciples making tea for them, but the dean's aura did not diminish in the slightest in front of the four great Sengoku. They did not know that Lu Chen was like this in the past. He was just a commoner, and he was not polite to the heavenly fate marshals and great heavenly generals. Even after reaching the sixth heaven, his temper still did not change. Sengoku. Lu Chen had long scoffed at this title in his heart. If he really became an immortal, why would he stay at the sixth heaven? It was most likely an honorific title, just like how people called Zongxian Gu disciples, immortal masters. It could only be said that Zongxian Gu had been the boss for too long, and he had become arrogant. To Changming, Yi Tian, and a sea of clouds, Lu Chen would respectfully address them as seniors. To these irrelevant people, it was already good enough that Lu Chen could follow and call them Sengoku. Did they really expect him to bow and scrape? Obviously not. Ma Bei also stopped smiling. This Nameless was indeed difficult to deal with. Alright, Nameless is also a straightforward person. Then I'll be straightforward. As long as you give up on continuing to challenge the Soul Martial Hall, we will count your result as passing the 9th level of the Soul Martial Hall. Also, because it is a twin Soul Martial Hall, we will give you double the reward. Tian and the rest's jaws almost dropped. Zhongxiangu gave in. Directly based on the highest reward, and even double the reward, this was definitely unprecedented. However, this matter did not seem to be over. Lu Chen's lips curled up slightly, and he snorted coldly, saying, 4 times. Chapter 1006. 4 times. Nameless, don't go too far. Princess Hibiscus slammed the table and stood up, looking angrily at Lu Chen. You have to understand who you are negotiating with. Lu Chen looked indifferently at the furious Princess Hibiscus. Of course I know who I am negotiating with. Zhongxiangu, as everyone knows, is rich. You really have guts. You know that your demonic academy will have to rely on us in the future. Lu Chen snorted, rely on you? Who told you that? Princess Hibiscus glared at Lu Chen. What a joke. Do you think you can jump out of the Xingyuan Continent's academy system? Lu Chen smiled, who knows what will happen in the future. Besides, you have to understand that I'm not the one negotiating with you. It's you who are looking for me. You want to negotiate with me, and I have to agree to whatever you say. Is there such a logic in this world? You are offending your superiors. Don't forget, your demonic academy was founded in the ruins of the Wu Nian Academy because we gave you the opportunity. What, you want to turn your back on us after getting benefits? Even a dog knows how to repay kindness. Sengoku of the 7 ministers said angrily, don't think that no one can break your creation space. How dare a mere low-level concept act so rashly here? Lu Chen stood up and looked at the 4 Sengoku. His eyes were cold. It was time to settle the anger in his stomach. Offending my superiors? You forced me to do that. My demonic academy was originally developing peacefully. You said that you wanted to unseal my area according to the number of students enrolled, so I recruited disciples. You said that the opening of the 10 great halls had to be approved by you. We were preparing lessons, so you wanted us to come and challenge the Soul Martial Hall. We came and challenged the Soul Martial Hall. I want to ask, did our demonic academy violate your rules? And the result? I participated in the challenge of the Soul Martial Hall. You didn't inform me in advance and directly increased the difficulty of the challenge. Are you trying to kill me? If I didn't have the emptiness of gods and demons' arm and the creation space, would probably have died in the 6th hall. This is the result of complying with your rules. Tell me, why should I continue to listen to you? You can break my creation space. Very well, then break it. In front of all the deans, let everyone see the means of your pavilion of immortals. Lu Chen's every word was true and overbearing. Hibiscus Immortal King was so angry that her face turned pale, yet she was unable to say anything for a long time. Lu Chen snorted. I challenged the Soul Martial Hall with my own strength, but you used despicable tricks to obstruct me again and again. Is this how Zhongxiangu manages the academy? Facing 4 Sengoku, Lu Chen's aura was not weak at all. Instead, he made the 4 Sengoku speechless. Alright, the tea is finished. Hurry up and restore the Soul Martial Hall. I don't want double rewards. I just want people to see the incompetence of the Soul Martial Hall. Lu Chen said and turned around. Hey, Nameless. Mabe finally couldn't hold it in and hurriedly pulled Nameless. Calm down. It's just tea. Why are you so angry? Lu Chen frowned and said, if we don't agree, half a sentence is too much. The tea is good, but unfortunately, I don't like the person who drinks it. The other 3 Sengoku were angered by Lu Chen, but they couldn't say anything. Nameless. Why do you have to do this? Mabe pulled Lu Chen back. You're right. We're all smart people, so I'll get straight to the point. Think about it. Do you really benefit from offending Zhongxiangu? You said that you don't want to rely on Zhongxiangu, but can the demonic academy cut off all ties with the other academies? As far as I know, you guys are doing pretty well. It's a pity to cut it off like this. This time, it's true that we did something wrong, but you have to think about it from our point of view. You're destined to not be a fish in a pond. You're obediently following the rules now, but what about in the future? Just look at your resume and you'll know. You've overturned the rules of the three heavens. Also, do you really think that we didn't do anything? Haven't the Purple Sky Palace done anything recently? If it weren't for us threatening them, they would have flattened your demonic academy. Mabe finally spoke the truth. Lu Chen's anger subsided a little. Lu Chen sighed. I didn't expect you to want to kill me just because you're afraid of my potential. I think the Zhongxian Ji's vision is not as good as the Heavenly Music Pavilion's. The Heavenly Music Pavilion had offered generous gifts to win over Lu Chen, but the Zhongxian Gu wanted to kill Lu Chen. Nameless, you've wronged us by saying that we want to kill you. The Venerable Immortal's intention is to restrict your development. We didn't lie to you. If you don't believe us, you can ask Yi Tian if there has ever been a case of a dean dying in the Soul Martial Hall. Lu Chen turned to look at Yi Tian. Yi Tian frowned and said, there hasn't been in the past. In other words, it was hard to say whether Lu Chen would really die in the Soul Martial Hall this time. Yi Tian, look at what you're saying. There hasn't been in the past, and there won't be in the future. There are so many deans watching the battle. If the Zhongxian Gu didn't consider our prestige in the academy, do you think you'd still negotiate with us here? Mabe's words were somewhat trustworthy. Nameless, the reward for the 9th floor of the Soul Martial Hall is already very good. We've never offered double the reward before, and we also hope to reconcile with you. Since you're not satisfied, how about this? We'll each take a step back and triple the reward. It won't hurt our relationship, and everyone will be happy. What do you think? Seeing that Lu Chen was a little hesitant, Mabe said, Nameless, if you want to leave the prosperous origin continent, you can't avoid the Zhongxian Gu. Between the continents, unless the Immortal Academy isn't restricted, the other academies have to rely on the main academies of each continent to truly leave the continent. As long as you agree to continue to abide by the rules, develop the academy normally, and represent the Zhongxian Gu in the continent's competition in the future, the Zhongxian Gu will guarantee that we won't suppress you. Lu Chen frowned slightly. Represent the Zhongxian Gu in the competition? Yes, to be precise, represent the prosperous origin continent. The competition between the continents is more intense than you think. Our Zhongxian Gu can't afford to have a fire in our backyard. Then what about the demonic academy? Of course it's still your demonic academy. However, if you can really become the #1 in the prosperous origin continent, there will be a prosperous origin continent Zhongxian Gu in the future. Lu Chen nodded. This was acceptable. Triple the reward, I feel like I'm still losing out. The difficulty of your twin Soul Martial Hall is not small. Mabe's face darkened. Not small. That's for other people. For you, what kind of difficulty is there? Half a chair, throw a creation space, and you'll pass just by sitting there. It seems like the Soul Martial Hall needs to be improved in the future. How about this? Since you guys are so sincere, I'll reluctantly agree. Lu Chen said, but, the 2 stone lions in front of the Sengoku Hall are quite domineering. Oh, and the few vases in the corridor, I feel that if I put them in my demonic palace, they should add a lot of color. Large beads of sweat fell from Mabe's forehead. He gritted his teeth and said, Men, send the Lion King's spirit statue in front of the Sengoku Hall and the 4 Seasons Rui vase in the hall to the demonic academy. Chapter 1007. When they came out of the Sengoku Hall, the vase and stone lion were gone. They should have been sent to the demonic academy. However, the strange thing was that the other decorations in the hall were also gone. Long Xiang muttered to Saiji. They were probably afraid that the dean would take a fancy to something else, so they quickly put away the Sengoku Hall. The dean is really ruthless. He didn't even let go of the vase. It's really scary. Indeed. Just look at Mabe's expression and you can tell how much pain he felt. He even took away the stone lion that protected the house. The dean is indeed the dean. Normal people wouldn't be able to do that. They really gained face this time. I've never seen Zhongxian go lower their voice to any other academy. Not long after, everyone returned to the Seoul Martial Hall. Zhongxian Gu personally announced that the Seoul Martial Hall had to stop the test because of a malfunction. As compensation, Zhongxian Gu generously counted Nameless as passing the Seoul Martial Hall. As for the triple reward, they didn't mention it. Zhongxian Gu made themselves sound very generous. They purposely didn't mention Lu Chen's strength. However, Lu Chen didn't care about that. It was fine as long as he got the reward. He didn't care if others recognized his strength or not. What they wanted was a reputation. Then he'll give it to them. It was fine as long as it didn't affect his reward. Mabe personally brought Lu Chen to the treasure room corresponding to the Seoul Martial Hall. They went straight to the 9th floor. Nameless. The left side is the Academy's reward. Normally, you can choose any 3 rewards. However, since it's a triple reward, you can choose 9. The right side is the individual reward. Normally, you can choose 1. You can choose 3. Lu Chen frowned slightly. That's all. Mabe smiled faintly. If you want more, the rewards from the first few floors are more than enough. However, the rewards from the 9th floor are all the best. Even our Zhongxian Gu isn't rich enough to give out treasures of this level so casually. Don't worry, we won't lie to you about this kind of thing. After that, you still need to show us the reward. Oh, just show us the reward. I hope you won't spread the news about the triple reward. Since they still wanted to display the prizes, Lu Chen wasn't afraid that they would tamper with it. He nodded and said, then I'll choose the Academy's prize first. Alright, I'll bring you in. The two of them entered the Academy's reward area first. As soon as he arrived at the Academy's reward area, Lu Chen was attracted by the treasures here. There didn't seem to be many treasures here. The distance between each treasure was very large. Every treasure was carefully placed on a special display counter. The treasures were all faintly glowing. One could tell at a glance that they weren't ordinary items. Lu Chen saw sets of swords and walked forward to take a look. There was a very short description in front of each set of swords. Soaring Purple Light Sword Set, 27 pieces, Quasi-Relic, Main Element of Light. Quasi-Relic. Lu Chen's eyes widened. The quality of this set of swords could at least reach the level of Silver Bile. He looked at the other display counters. Thunder God Armor Set, 5 pieces, Quasi-Relic, Full Defense, Physical Damage Reduction. Mabe, if I choose this set of Thunder God Armor, do I choose 1 piece at a time or? Lu Chen asked. Mabe smiled. Of course it's a set. How can you choose 1 piece at a time be worthy of the reward for clearing the Seoul Martial Hall? Lu Chen nodded. Although he could only choose 9 pieces of the reward, it was true that the value of 1 piece of the reward was high. Apart from the equipment, there were also skills, mental cultivation methods, control skills, super powerful pills, recipes, furnaces, and even a battle pet egg that Lu Chen saw. All the good things that were hard to come by were here. Lu Chen walked to the corner and found that there seemed to be the outline of a display counter here. It was covered by a layer of cloth and there were many things piled up on top of it. Lu Chen frowned and began to move the things on top of it. Nameless, what are you doing? I think it's too messy here, so I'm helping to clean up. After putting down the things, Lu Chen lifted the thick layer of cloth. There was indeed a display counter inside. Moreover, there was something else. There was a book inside. Lu Chen stuck it to read. What's the meaning of this set of Academy mental cultivation methods? Lu Chen looked at the book strangely. The description said that this was a set of Academy mental cultivation methods. Ma Bei was speechless. He muttered, "Why is this book still here? Didn't they put it away more than 10 years ago?" Ma Bei? What's the matter? Lu Chen asked curiously. Oh, no, nothing. Well, you just asked about the Academy mental cultivation methods. In fact, many skills and mental cultivation methods can only be used by one person and are destroyed at the same time after use. However, there are very few mental cultivation methods that can be practiced repeatedly. Many academies will use these skills and mental cultivation methods as the foundation for all academies to practice together. This heavenly word mental cultivation method is one of them. That's why it's called Academy Mental Cultivation Methods. Practice repeatedly. Lu Chen opened his eyes wide. Yes. But I have to remind you that the advantage of those one-time mental cultivation methods is that once you learn them, you can break through as long as you meet the requirements later on. After breaking through, you don't need to learn them repeatedly. However, this kind of mental cultivation method requires you to comprehend and break through on your own. Moreover, you can't learn them all at once. After breaking through, you have to learn the content of the next level again. On the whole, it's still quite troublesome. Who doesn't want to master a mental cultivation method in one step? To comprehend and break through level by level is too troublesome for students. Why don't you take a look at the other rewards? Lu Chen didn't listen to Ma Bei. After thinking about it, this was quite suitable as the Academy's foundation mental cultivation method. The key was that mental cultivation methods were already difficult to get, let alone a mental cultivation method that appeared at level 9. Do you have any other Academy skills or mental cultivation methods here? As for the others, this kind of repetitive learning method isn't so easy to get. There's only one heavenly word mental cultivation method here. I feel that you should choose some rewards for those top students. I'll take this heavenly word mental cultivation method first. Lu Chen directly opened the display stand and took the heavenly word mental cultivation method first. Ma Bei's heart was bleeding. This guy didn't listen to his suggestions at all. Coincidentally, he had taken a fancy to this mental cultivation method at first glance. The first reward he chose made his heart ache. Zhongxian Gu originally intended to give this mental cultivation method to their disciples to practice. Later on, because the first level of the mental cultivation method had a spiritual power circulation method that people couldn't understand, they chose another mental cultivation method of the same level. This one was no longer useful after being eliminated, so it was temporarily placed here and hidden away. Although Zhongxian Gu already had its own academy's mental cultivation method now, this one was eliminated, but it didn't mean that this mental cultivation method wasn't good. Using a mental cultivation method of the same level as Zhongxian Ji's disciples. It was like breaking up with a girlfriend not because of bad conditions, but because of some misunderstanding. Now that he saw her being taken away by someone else, he also felt heartache. Aya, there are so many treasures here. I have to take a good look at them. Ma Bei, why don't you wait for me outside? Lu Chen rolled up his sleeves, looking like he was going to do something big. This. Forget it, I'll accompany you. Otherwise, I won't be at ease. Ma Bei shook his head and swallowed his bitterness. Chapter 1008. Looking at Lu Chen who was sweating profusely, Ma Bei could see that this guy wasn't here to choose a prize. He was here to tear down the treasure pavilion. Every nook and cranny, every hidden corner, he didn't let go of a single one. He didn't even see him this tired in the Soul Martial Hall. In the end, Lu Chen chose a heavenly word nourishing mind technique and a set of Celestial Emperor's Sword, a total of 9. A set of Divine Transformation Storm set, this set had a total of 6 parts, combining attack and defense, especially the elemental enhancement was very significant. A divine beast battle pet egg, 2 general, immortal method, skills, 1 long range and 1 close range, both with skills. There were a total of 3 practice rooms with a small spirit gathering array, which could greatly increase the speed of cultivation. A puppet array of 9 battles of the heavens could train the student's combat ability. A simulation array similar to an illusion array, called clairvoyance diagram. At present, the clairvoyance diagram was blank. When the supporting magic treasure was placed, it could show the image of a certain area. Mental cultivation method, weapon, set, 2 sets of skills, battle pet egg, practice room, puppet array, and clairvoyance diagram. Exactly 9 treasures. Done. Lu Chen stopped with satisfaction. Maobei's face was full of despair. This guy's vision was really sharp, and the most abominable thing was that Maobei originally thought that he would choose a reward for each of the 9 professions, but who would have thought, nameless selection criteria seemed to only choose the best and not the most suitable. He didn't play by the rules. Nameless, what do you want the clairvoyance diagram for? Maobei said weakly. Oh, this, I think it's pretty good. When I participated in the big hunting competition last time, I wanted one. I didn't expect to find a similar one here. I think it's very useful. Lu Chen wasn't without ideas. He threw Wu Xian and Skyfall to the cliff of reflection, and those 2 could find the secret passage. If he didn't keep an eye on these guys, wouldn't that be against the heavens? None of these students were easy to deal with. He needed a heaven's eye diagram. Maobei shook his head. Forget it. Since he had already made his choice, he could only let this guy take him away. Next was the individual prize. Who knew what kind of treasure that guy would find? In the personal treasure area, Lu Chen wanted even more things. He wanted nothing more than to take away all the weapons and equipment and let everlasting eat to his heart's content. However, Lu Chen restrained his desire and asked Maobei, are there any divine body pills here? Divine body elixir. Medicinal pills of that level are very rare, and the demand for medicinal pills is also very high. The disciples of Zhongxian Gu would normally exchange for them, so they wouldn't leave them here. Are all the things you put here useless? Lu Chen asked. Of course not. Most people rarely choose consumables. After all, compared to other treasures, consumables have a much lower cost-performance ratio. It would be a waste to leave them here. Lu Chen nodded. All right, it looked like he had really missed out on the divine body pills. Speaking of which, the emptiness of gods and demons had said that only a planet crystal core could relieve him of his fatigue state. He wondered what kind of treasure could help him find a planet crystal core. Just as Lu Chen was hesitating, Lu Yi's voice rang out in his mind. Boss, there's something over there. I and Xiao Min can use it. Lu Chen was a little surprised. Could it be a tool to help Xiao Min and Lu Yi be reborn? He hurriedly followed Lu Yi's guidance and arrived in front of a display case. There was a black mist flowing inside the case. It seemed to have a form and was roughly shaped like a disc. However, it didn't seem to have a specific shape because there was no real disc inside the black mist. Underworld Heavenly Domain Compass. Effect, ominous, is this it? Lu Chen asked secretly. Yes. Lu Chen didn't hesitate. He took out the Underworld Heavenly Domain Compass and put it in his backpack. Nameless. Do you know what this thing is for? Maobei looked at Lu Chen curiously. After all, this guy had chosen supreme-grade treasures before. He had suddenly chosen something useless. The only explanation was that he knew what this compass was for. However, Lu Chen shook his head and said frankly, I don't know. Why did you take it if you don't know? It's probably related to spirit-body rebirth. I have a friend who needs it, so I took it. Lu Chen didn't hide anything. Maobei nodded. However, he didn't expect this guy to waste a treasure selection opportunity without hesitation for a friend. Now, Lu Chen only had 2 personal treasures left to choose from. After searching for a long time, Lu Chen found something strange in a display case. There was a strange stone in the display case. It was completely black, but from the cracks on the surface, one could see a red glow inside. It was as if it was wrapped in magma. High-level mount initiation pill. It can be used to advance a mount. The effect varies from person to person. You need to extract the mount first. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Mount advancement pill. There's hope for 9-winged. Compared to weapons, this item seemed to be even rarer. Lu Chen took the initiation pill without hesitation. After using up 2 chances at once, Lu Chen now only had 1 chance to choose a treasure. Looking left and right, Lu Chen didn't find anything that was particularly useful to him. His main skills were the skills of the God Fiend set. The other skills were just icing on the cake. As for equipment, they could only be used as rations for Wuji. He felt that it was a waste to use this opportunity to choose a piece of equipment. All kinds of magic treasures were useful, but none of them could fundamentally increase one's strength. Lu Chen shook his head and turned to look at Mabe, hoping that Mabe would give him a suggestion. Mabe, what do you think I should take? However, when he turned around, he saw Mabe staring at a display case. From his gaze, it was as if he was afraid that Lu Chen would discover something. Oh. Lu Chen's eyes suddenly lit up. Ah. Oh, you want my suggestion? I think. Mabe snapped back to reality and hurriedly answered, but he realized that Lu Chen was no longer looking at him. At this moment, Lu Chen was walking step by step towards a display case. Seeing this, Mabe only felt a chill in his heart. No way, he couldn't have been discovered by this guy. There was a book on puppet control in the display case. It was also a high-level book, but Lu Chen felt that Mabe didn't care about it. He began to knock on the display case. Nameless brother, what are you doing? I think it's getting late. Let's hurry up and finish choosing and leave. No rush. Lu Chen continued to listen attentively. Heaven's eye. Mabe's face was filled with fear. Damn. To choose a treasure, he even used Heaven's eye. This guy was really smarter than a monkey. He had already discovered the problem. Sure enough, Lu Chen found a mechanism and gently pressed it. The display case with the puppet control case slowly turned. Not long after, it turned into a wall. Behind it, there was actually another display case. Nameless, listen to me. This thing isn't in the list of prizes. Mabe was really anxious now. Lu Chen sneered, you can't be thinking of me telling others that there's still a secret in your treasure vault, and that the real good things are hidden away, right? You can't say that. This is why we didn't have time to move it away. Zhongxiangu said it himself. I can choose any treasure inside. Since it's here, of course I can choose. This, Nameless, I really have to hand it to you. Lu Chen chuckled and turned to look at the items in the display case. Heaven-burning mystical flame bead. After consumption, it can greatly increase fire affinity. Giant bat increases fire intensity. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Increase fire affinity. Previously, Kong Jianxin had given him a book, Heaven-burning flames. Wasn't it because he didn't have enough fire affinity that he couldn't cultivate it? Okay, I'll choose this. Chapter 1009. Lu Chen walked out of the Soul Martial Hall's treasure vault with satisfaction, while Mabe was crestfallen. Many deans were still waiting for Lu Chen to show his prizes. This was also an important part of the Soul Martial Hall. According to the agreement, Lu Chen would only show 3 academy prizes and 1 personal prize. Lu Chen casually showed a few treasures. When Lu Chen took out a few items and showed them one by one, there was a commotion below the stage. Soul transformation storm set, it's a semi-divine set. It's a set directly. Oh my God, the Ninth Temple's prizes are indeed extraordinary. 3 spirit gathering cultivation rooms at a time. Our sacred academy only has 1 room. A skill with a skill astral body, it's hard to come by. The demonic academy's students will definitely be excited. But John Doe chose a mount advancement pill for himself. Although it's rare, it's a few levels lower than the others. In terms of combat power, the mount advancement pill was indeed much less effective. However, Lu Chen felt that it was time to upgrade Nine-Winged. Nine-Winged had an excellent bloodline, but it was becoming more and more mediocre. As a mount that had followed Lu Chen for many years, it was nothing to choose a treasure for it. Maobei flew to Lu Chen's side and whispered, "Nameless Dean, look, you can put away your creation space now." Lu Chen nodded and used his spiritual power to calm the violent spiritual power in the space. Finally, he put away the creation space. Maobei finally heaved a sigh of relief. This matter was finally settled, and Zhongxian Ji's reputation was preserved to the greatest extent. No matter what, the treasures on the 9th floor made all the deans green with envy. They all stared at Lu Chen as he walked off the stage. "Dean, what other good things did you take?" Long Ting moved closer to Lu Chen and asked in a low voice. "We'll talk about it when we get back." Lu Chen said, "Let's hurry back to the academy and take a look at the Cliff of Reflection." Lu Chen wasn't sure if this matter had anything to do with Zhongxian Gu, so he didn't mention it to Maobei. However, a long time had passed, and he was eager to return home. Maobei personally escorted Lu Chen and the others as they left. When they arrived at Idler Cloud Mountain, Maobei stopped and said to Lu Chen, "Nameless, I hope that you can uphold our agreement. From my personal standpoint, I do not wish for us to ever cross swords." Lu Chen couldn't help but take another look at Maobei. From Maobei's attitude, it seemed that he didn't know anything about the secret passage at the Demonic Academy. Although he might not know everything about Zhongxian Gu, it couldn't be ruled out that the secret passage wasn't the work of Zhongxian Gu. "Me too. Maobei Immortal King, let's part ways here. Alright, I look forward to your and the Demonic Academy's future performance." Lu Chen originally wanted to say goodbye to Senki Gakuen, but due to the urgency of the situation, he didn't have time to find Senki Gakuen in the sea of people. For the time being, Lu Chen remembered that they were able to help at a critical moment. Lu Chen and the others sped all the way to the Demonic Academy. After returning to the Demonic Academy, Lu Chen and Yi Tian headed to the Cliff of Reflection via a sea of clouds. At this time, Yi Fan and Chu Tian were standing guard. When they saw Lu Chen return, the two of them went up to greet him. "Director. You're finally back. Skyfall and Wu Xian have been in there for 10 days. Lu Chen nodded. "The two of you stand guard outside. No one else is allowed to enter." "Yes." Lu Chen, Yi Tian, and a sea of clouds entered the Cliff of Reflection together and went all the way to the deepest part of the cave. Sure enough, they found a hole in the wall. They didn't know where the dark hole led to, but there was a constant sound coming from inside. It seemed to be the sound of wind. "Do the students know about this?" Lu Chen asked. "They don't know yet. Wu Xian and Skyfall's friends. I told them that I sent them on a mission. I'm afraid that the students won't be able to cultivate in peace if the news spreads," a sea of clouds said. "Yes, let's not spread the news for now. If we tell them now, a few more people might go in to explore." Lu Chen pondered for a moment, then handed the treasures he won from Zhongxian Gu to a sea of clouds and Yi Tian. "Leave these treasures in our treasury for now. I'll go in and take a look." Yi Tian grabbed Lu Chen. "Nameless, you immediately participated in the Soul Martial Hall Challenge after returning from the Immortal Corpse Mound. Now that you're back, you haven't even rested. Although we're anxious, I'm afraid that you won't be of much use even if you go in." A sea of clouds also said, "Nameless, I know you're anxious, but more haste, less speed. Why don't we wait for 2 more days? At least let's wait for you to recover for 10 minutes. Lu Chen shook his head. It's too late. I don't have any problems with my stamina. As for the Soul Martial Hall, even without the Soul Martial Hall, I won't die so easily. I'm just afraid that if we delay any longer, they'll be in trouble if they encounter danger. Old C, if I don't come out in 5 days, you'll be the director of the Demonic Academy. After saying this, Lu Chen didn't even look back and directly entered the cave. Director. A sea of clouds and Yi Tian couldn't win against Lu Chen in the end. The two of them had no choice but to leave the cliff of reflection. After watching the two great teachers leave, Chu Tian looked at Yi Fan. I heard what they said just now. Our director is really fierce. It said that he didn't rest after fighting for so many days. When he heard that Wu Xian and Skyfall didn't come out, he went in without looking back. Yi Fan looked back at the cave and sighed. There aren't many people that I, Yi Fan, admire. The nameless director is definitely one of them. What did I, Yi Fan, do to deserve such a director? If it weren't for him, I would have been caught by the Purple Sky Palace. Chu Tian nodded. We can't help with anything else. We can only try our best to become stronger. Don't embarrass the director and the Demonic Academy. Yi Fan narrowed his eyes slightly. Of course. I hope they can all come out safely. The deeper they went into the secret passage, the wider it became. Lu Chen took out the clear water pearl. Although they weren't in the water, the faint light of the clear water pearl could more or less illuminate the path ahead. In addition, Lu Chen also called out rhubarb. He didn't call out rhubarb in the treasure pavilion. First of all, he was confident in his vision. Second of all, Mabe was watching over him. Rhubarb's identity was special. Lu Chen didn't even know what rhubarb was. He didn't want Zhongxian Gu to know about rhubarb's heaven-defying ability. And now, it was a good time for rhubarb to show off his skills. Rhubarb, can you feel anything? Rhubarb shook his head. Maybe it was too far away. Okay, let's keep going. This secret passage was surprisingly long. After walking for more than 2 hours, it was still dark in front of them. They couldn't see the end, such a long tunnel, I can't even tell the direction now. Are you sure it was dug by someone? Lu Chen calculated the time. To dig such a tunnel, it would take a lot of time and a lot of manpower. Otherwise, they would lose their way while digging. But the sacred courtyard of Wunyan was closed to the fight for the old site for about half a year. During this time, could Zhongxian Gu operate without anyone noticing? It was a little difficult. Who was the one who dug this tunnel? And why did they dig it? Lu Chen frowned. What secrets are there under the Demonic Academy? Chapter 10:10. The tunnel was getting deeper and deeper. Even rhubarb had to stop every now and then. It seemed that they were close to spiritual energy. After walking for an unknown amount of time, the tunnel finally became wider, and there was even a fork in the road. No way, this tunnel is already so deep, and there's a fork in the road. How are we going to chase after them? Lu Chen stood in front of the 3 entrances and was at a loss. Did the 3 of them choose the same path, or did they split up? At that moment, Rhubarb walked around the left entrance, then stopped at the entrance and barked at Lu Chen. "HM. There's a mark." Lu Chen hurried over. With the help of the clear water pearl's light, Lu Chen saw an arrowhead pattern on the rock wall next to the entrance. It seemed to have been carved by a sharp weapon. There was also a simple drawing of a pair of fox ears below the arrowhead. Lu Chen originally wanted to suspect who left this mark, but now it was clear. It was undoubtedly left by Li Wei. He just didn't know if Li Wei had found Wu Xian and Skyfall. Forget it, at least I'm sure there's someone in this tunnel. Rhubarb, let's go. There were still a few forks in the road, but Li Wei had left a mark on each of them. Lu Chen just had to follow the marks. Lu Chen estimated that 7 or 8 hours had passed since they entered the secret tunnel. Gradually, there was some light in front of them. It's such a long tunnel. I don't think it's still within the demonic academy. Taking advantage of the short break, Lu Chen thought that if it wasn't within the demonic academy's area, then the possibility of the tunnel leading to the main spirit vein was not high. After a short break, Lu Chen put away the clear water pearl and rhubarb, considering that there might be danger ahead, and headed towards the light source. Not long after, Lu Chen saw the light source from afar. It was a huge teleportation gate that was shining with silver light. It was about 20 meters tall, and the interior of the teleportation gate was slowly rotating like a black hole. The entire teleportation gate was faintly glowing. Just as Lu Chen was about to walk in, a voice suddenly came from behind the rocks. Nameless. Lu Chen turned his head to look, only to see a beautiful figure flash out from behind the rubble and appear beside him in the blink of an eye. Li Wei. Li Wei looked at the teleportation gate. At this time, the teleportation gate seemed to be brighter than before. She immediately grabbed Lu Chen's hand and quickly pulled him behind the rocks to hide. The space behind the rocks was not big, so the two of them were almost touching each other. Lu Chen looked confused and asked, "What?" Li Wei raised her right index finger to her lips and made a shushing gesture. Lu Chen was half pressed against the rock by Li Wei. The two of them were facing each other. Lu Chen could feel Li Wei's breath and the faint fragrance of her body. What's going on? Lu Chen's mind was in a mess. Could it be that something was going to happen here? That's not good, right? The time and place are not suitable. Just as Lu Chen was about to undress, there was a strange movement behind him. Lu Chen hurriedly turned his head to look at the teleportation gate. The teleportation gate suddenly erupted with a beam of spiritual energy and shot forward. Then, the beam of light traveled along the tunnel until it disappeared. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Could it be that this tunnel was not man-made, but was formed by the continuous impact of the beam of spiritual energy emitted by the teleportation gate? A few minutes after the beam of spiritual energy dissipated, Li Wei brought Lu Chen out from the gap behind the stone wall. Li Wei's face was a little red, and she unnaturally stroked her hair bun. Your hand has recovered. Lu Chen nodded. It's recovered. Were you imagining things just now? Li Wei looked up at Lu Chen. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Absolutely not. Li Wei turned her head and changed the topic. Ahem, Wuxia and Skyfall should have entered the teleportation gate. I followed their footprints here and then they disappeared. Lu Chen was sweating profusely. He finally got away with it. Where does the teleportation gate lead to? Lu Chen asked. Also, what's with that beam of spiritual energy? I don't know, but I calculated the time of the beam of spiritual energy. It will automatically shoot out about once every 10 hours. It seems to be coming from the other side of the teleportation gate. Li Wei said, I noticed that the path of the tunnel is irregular. I suspect that this tunnel was created by the teleportation gate. Lu Chen also had the same guess, but he couldn't be sure at the moment. Li Wei walked to the teleportation gate. I originally wanted to enter the teleportation gate, but I was afraid that if I couldn't get out, your people would continue to search for me. If this continued, the consequences would only get worse. I didn't dare to leave here. I was afraid that Wu Xian and the others would come out and there would be no one to meet them. The spiritual energy in this place is chaotic, and the sound transmission talisman can't transmit sound, so I could only wait here for your people to come down. I didn't expect to wait for 10 days, and you only came down now. Lu Chen said a little embarrassedly, sorry, I just returned to the academy today. Li Wei nodded. What do you plan to do now? Lu Chen also walked to the teleportation gate. When he got close to it, he suddenly felt something strange with his left arm. Lu Chen hurriedly sensed it carefully. The emptiness of God's and demons' arms seemed to have a special reaction to the teleportation gate. Back then, the consciousness of the emptiness of gods and demons had introduced the emptiness of gods and demons' arm. In addition to its powerful combat ability, the emptiness of gods and demons' arm had an additional ability, which was to communicate with the souls of the dead. Nameless, did you find anything? Li Wei asked. After a moment, Lu Chen came back to his senses and said to Li Wei, the spiritual energy beam just now came from the underworld. The underworld? Li Wei's eyes widened. Could it be that this teleportation gate is the entrance to the underworld? Lu Chen frowned. We can't rule out this possibility. Moreover, from the current situation, it seems like someone is trying to open the gate to the underworld. Li Wei seemed to have thought of something, and her expression became serious. Could it be him? Who? Li Wei looked at Lu Chen. Do you know that there is a prodigy list on the Xingyuan continent? I don't know. As expected, you don't know. Only the strongest geniuses of the continent are allowed to enter the prodigy ranking of Xingyuan continent, and the top 10 geniuses on the prodigy ranking are all extremely terrifying. The top 3 people are like cranes in a flock of chickens. The third person on the prodigy list is called Earthfiend Absolute Mask. He likes to wear an Earthfiend mask and is a puppeteer. He has a puppet called King of Hell, which is very powerful. Lu Chen frowned and asked, does he have anything to do with this matter? Listen to me first, Li Wei said, his puppet is very special. That puppet is not an inanimate object. Lu Chen was not too surprised about this. After all, when it came to living puppets, Su Yuan was not an inanimate puppet either. Why aren't you surprised at all? Li Wei frowned and looked at Lu Chen. It's a long story. First, tell me what the Earthfiend Absolute Mask has to do with this matter. Li Wei went straight to the point. The King of Hell's puppet is not an inanimate object. It has a certain level of consciousness. Most importantly, its spiritual energy is different from other people's. Someone once deduced that the King of Hell's power comes from the underworld. When the power of the underworld is stronger, the power of the King of Hell will be stronger. In the past 2 years, the strength of the Earthfiend Absolute Mask has improved by leaps and bounds, mainly because of the continuous improvement of the King of Hell's strength. He rose from the 15th place on the prodigy list to the 3rd place now. Now, even the 1st and 2nd place on the prodigy list do not dare to fight with the Earthfiend Absolute Mask. Chapter 10-11. Now I'm not sure if this is a coincidence or if it's really related to the Earth-terminating mask, Li Wei said. Lu Chen nodded and silently remembered the name of the Earth-terminating mask, then turned to look at the portal. The underworld. Wu Xian and Skyfall should be inside. Li Wei, thank you so much this time. If it weren't for you, I probably wouldn't even be able to touch this place. Lu Chen suddenly said to Li Wei, also, I'll have to trouble you to tell a Sea of Clouds and the others about the situation here. Li Wei looked at Lu Chen in surprise. What about you? Lu Chen looked at the portal. My disciples are inside. No matter what world it is, no matter who's plotting it, I must save them. Li Wei was shocked. Nameless meant that he was going to break into the underworld. Are you going alone? Lu Chen smiled at Li Wei. This is my demonic academy's matter. I've already asked you for a lot of help. Don't worry, if I can't get out, the demonic academy will help me repay the favor I owe you. Favor, they can't repay. Li Wei lowered her head and said slowly. Then she looked up at Lu Chen. I don't like to do things halfway. I'll go with you. There's no need. Don't worry, I won't be a burden to you. Li Wei said confidently. What's more, if the portal to the underworld is opened, it won't just affect your demonic academy. The portal is more stable now. Let's go. Li Wei didn't give Lu Chen a chance to speak at all and stepped directly into the portal. Lu Chen saw this and hurriedly grabbed Li Wei's hand and followed her into the portal. This time, it took longer than the previous portals. Fortunately, they were still safe in the midst of the ruins. Li Wei woke up earlier than Lu Chen. At this time, she looked at Lu Chen awkwardly. This guy had been holding her hand tightly. This was not because Lu Chen had any thoughts about Li Wei. Ever since he was kicked into the 6th celestial layer by the 5th celestial layer puppet master and lost contact with the little critter and the others, Lu Chen had a new understanding of the teleportation gate. For some teleportation portals, if one did not enter at the same time, they might appear in different locations. However, from Li Wei's point of view, this guy was still holding her hand tightly even when he was unconscious. She couldn't even pull her hand away. Perhaps it was because the teleportation took too long or because Lu Chen was too tired. Lu Chen still hadn't woken up. Li Wei hurriedly helped Lu Chen up. "Why aren't you awake yet?" "Nameless." Not long after, there was a snoring sound from Lu Chen's side. Lu Chen had been fighting continuously. Starting from the immortal corpse tomb, his soul-body fusion did not last more than 10 minutes. In order to find Li Wei and the others, he had trekked for several hours. To him, who was weak to begin with, he was already very tired. During the few minutes of the teleportation, Lu Chen accidentally fell asleep. This was like a person who had been staying up all night. It was fine if he didn't sleep, but once he closed his eyes, he would fall asleep instantly. He even said that he wanted to explore the underworld alone. This guy actually fell asleep. Li Wei shook her head helplessly. She was not in a hurry to wake Lu Chen up. She sized up the surroundings. At this time, they were in a wasteland. The surroundings were foggy, and the sun and moon could not be seen in the sky. The sky was faintly blood red. Is this the underworld? It seemed like it was Li Wei's first time coming to this dark world. Li Wei muttered to herself, "I heard from my ancestors that the underworld has its own 9 heavens. I don't know if it's true or not. The underworld should exist in every heavenly domain after the 5th heaven. Each heavenly domain is accompanied by an underworld, which is used to collect the departed souls of the current heavenly domain. Then, this should be the underworld of the 6th heaven. Perhaps, I can see them." It was said that the underworld was the gathering place of departed souls. However, the surrounding wind was chilly, and not a single departed soul could be seen. Looking to the north, there was a dense forest not far away. Although the branches and leaves were sparse, it was much more hidden than the two of them in the open wasteland. "Let's hide first." Thinking of this, Li Wei carried Lu Chen on her back and moved in the direction of the forest. Is this guy sure that he has the blood of a fox demon? Why do I feel like he's a pig demon? He's sleeping so soundly and so deeply. Not long after, Li Wei brought Lu Chen to the dense forest. She found a hidden grassland and put Lu Chen down. However, at this moment, it suddenly started to drizzle in the gray sky. The underworld also has the changes of the 4 seasons. Li Wei hurriedly opened up a spiritual shield to protect the nearby area and started a fire. Some of the blue flowers on the ground were particularly beautiful. Li Wei couldn't help but pluck one. After taking a closer look, she couldn't help but be shocked. This is a red spider lily. This kind of extremely rare medicinal material did appear in some medicinal formulas, but it was almost impossible to find this kind of flower on the market. It could be said that it was something that could only be found by chance. However, there were now many of them on the ground. Li Wei couldn't be bothered to collect the red spider lilies. She started a fire first, then sat beside Lu Chen to rest. The rain was getting heavier. In fact, Li Wei was also very tired. The sound of the rain matched the dim light. She gradually closed her eyes to rest. About 4 to 5 hours later, the rain still hadn't stopped, but Lu Chen finally woke up. As soon as he woke up, he found Li Wei leaning against him with her head resting on his shoulder. She had fallen asleep. Fortunately, they didn't get separated this time. Lu Chen carefully moved Li Wei's head away and leaned it against a tree. This is the underworld. Lu Chen looked at the gray world in front of him. The darkness made people feel depressed. Li Wei and I probably didn't encounter any danger when we came out. Wu Xian and Skyfall are probably the same. The chances of them surviving are still very high. Lu Chen took out a cloud of black gas from his backpack. This treasure was the Underworld Sky Domain Compass that he won at Zhongxiangu. At that time, Little Green said that this compass would be useful for their rebirth. Now that he thought about it, this compass could be put to good use. In Zhongxiangu, this compass didn't have a fixed shape. However, in the underworld, the black gas surrounding the compass disappeared, and the compass had a specific shape. This was a black 8 trigrams compass, and it even had a map of the underworld. Damn, there's a map. This is great. Lu Chen was overjoyed. Li Wei was a light sleeper. When she heard Lu Chen's movements, she got up and walked over. When she saw Lu Chen fiddling with the compass, she was surprised. Map? Why do you have this thing? I won it at the Zhongxiangu Seoul Martial Hall's Hall Challenge test, Lu Chen said. No way, they put this kind of thing in the Seoul Martial Hall's treasury. Maybe they thought that no one could pass the 9th floor, Lu Chen answered casually. Ah. You passed the 9th floor of the Seoul Martial Hall. The opponents on that floor were the 9-star Theo the Great, and there were many of them. How did you pass? It's a long story. Let's talk about it when we get back. Lu Chen took the compass and walked in front of Li Wei. According to the map, the underworld is divided into 4 major areas: the Dead Soul area, the Ghost Soldier area, the Dead Soul area, and the King of Hell's Hall. Each area has its own overlord. If Wu Xian and Skyfall are captured, they'll definitely be controlled by the forces of these 4 areas. As living people, it should be difficult for us to survive in the underworld. Try not to be discovered by the dead souls here. We'll leave as soon as we find the 2 of them. Lu Chen said. Okay. Let's go to the nearest Dead Soul area first. Chapter 10-12. Not far away, there was a black river. Seeing this river, Lu Chen couldn't help but stare blankly. Seeing this black river, Lu Chen thought of the river of forgetfulness in the 2nd layer of heaven. It had already been more than a month since he came to the 6th layer of heaven, but he still didn't have the chance to go back to the 2nd layer of heaven to take a look. Nameless, what's wrong? Li Wei saw that Lu Chen was in a daze and asked. Lu Chen said faintly, I remembered some things that I didn't have time to do. Then Lu Chen asked, Li Wei, can the Academy's teleportation gate lead to the lower heavens? The Academy also had a teleportation gate, but the Demonic Academy's teleportation gate hadn't been unsealed yet. Lu Chen remembered that it was unsealed when there were 1,800 people. It can, but the Demonic Academy is still a lower academy. The lower academy's teleportation gate can only return to the student's original world. Not only that, there is a limit to its usage. It can only be used 20 times a month, and each time it is only effective for 1 day. If the students don't return after the time limit, they will have to wait for a month. On the next day, the academy will use up another teleportation opportunity to return. Then what level does the academy have to reach before it can go to the lower realm? Immortal Academy. Li Wei replied, after reaching Immortal Academy, the number of times an Immortal Academy can go to the lower realm is also greatly limited. Although I don't know the exact situation, from what I know, Immortal Academy's students rarely spend that many academy points. Using it to go to the lower realm should cost quite a bit. In any case, in the Jiutian, one has to pay a huge price to go to the lower realm. The previous heavens were like this, and the higher the heavens, the more obvious it will be. Lu Chen was shocked. He had to go to a mortal academy to go to the lower realm. Would that girl be able to wait for him? Maybe if he had the chance, he would see if other immortal academies were willing to let him use the teleportation gate. Lu Chen shook his head, retracted his thoughts, and continued to walk along the river. Li Wei, let's go. After walking for a while, Lu Chen and Li Wei both noticed a figure walking in the distance. The two reacted almost at the same time, hiding behind a low bush. Hiss, why is there someone here? Lu Chen was a little puzzled. The fellow in the distance was a human and was no different from a normal person. He didn't look like a spirit body at all. They might be ghosts, but they don't exist here in the form of ghosts like in our world. Lu Chen suddenly thought of something and summoned Xiao Min and Little Green. When the two of them appeared beside Lu Chen, they were indeed different from before. Their faces were rosy. In the past, Xiao Min always seemed to be floating when she walked, but now, it seemed that she could no longer float. Boss! Lu Yi looked at her delicate and blood-red hands, her eyes filled with shock. Although the two of them were both ghost pets, they had never entered the underworld. It was their first time here, so it was extremely novel. As expected, we should belong here. Xiao Min said thoughtfully. The underworld. The world of the undead. Lu Chen asked, Little Green, you said that the underworld's heavenly domain compass is helpful for your rebirth. Is there something in the underworld that you need? Little Green nodded. Xiao Min and my soul consciousness weren't affected by the underworld, so in theory, we can be reborn. However, since we've both died, our souls will be affected by the underworld. We have to cut off the influence of the underworld to achieve true rebirth. There's a kind of herb in the underworld that can cut off the connection between the soul and the underworld. At first, I didn't know that Boss had a chance to enter the underworld. I only thought that maybe it would be useful in the future. I didn't expect Boss to really come to the underworld. Lu Chen smiled. If he could find that herb, he would really have to thank the mastermind behind this matter. What kind of herb do you need? Underworld's flower. Lu Chen remembered this name. Okay, I'll find a way to get it. The road ahead was dangerous. Lu Chen put away Little Green and Xiao Min first. Li Wei, wait for me here. I'll go and catch that soul. Lu Chen said. Wait. Li Wei pulled Lu Chen. Be careful, it might be a trap. Let me do it. Lu Chen felt a little strange. Li Wei was more confident than him. Li Wei finished speaking and waved her sleeves. A faint jasmine fragrance spread out. Lu Chen was caught off guard. His mind was suddenly muddled. He looked at Li Wei in front of him. This originally perfect and impeccable beauty had unknowingly removed her outer clothes, this fair skin and graceful figure. Lu Chen couldn't help but have a nosebleed. Li Wei turned her head and saw Lu Chen's hesitant gaze. She hurriedly gave him a pill. With the fragrance in his mouth, Lu Chen regained consciousness. He found that Li Wei didn't take off her clothes. Everything just now was his illusion. Sorry, I thought you were immune to the Fox clan's illusion. Li Wei was also a little embarrassed. She turned her head and handed him a tissue. You have a nosebleed. Lu Chen wanted to curse. Was this woman a pig-like teammate? He only had a pair of fox ears. How could he be immune to the Fox clan's illusion? He really had to be careful when teaming up with her. The jasmine fragrance dispersed. Not long after, the soul walked over. He stood in front of Lu Chen and Li Wei. However, he didn't have any reaction. He just stared at Lu Chen and smiled foolishly. Lu Chen was a little scared. He's a man. Why is he looking at me like that? Shouldn't he be looking at you? Everyone sees different things in the fox demon's illusion. I think, as a soul, maybe he's not interested in sensual pleasures. He's more interested in yang qi. When it comes to yang qi, Lu Chen was indeed very strong. After all, he had been single for more than 20 years. Moreover, he just had a nosebleed. The blood of a strong man was even more full of yang qi. However, looking at the infatuated expression of the dead soul, John Doe, don't tell me you're still a virgin. Lu Chen found that next time, he must never team up with a fox demon. Good heavens, she even knew this top-secret information. Of course not. Li Wei smiled. Nameless also had times when he couldn't speak. Well, there's no need to explain. You can ask him now. Lu Chen was sweating profusely. He quickly got to the point. Who are you? Why are you wandering around here alone? It was as if a spell had been cast on the soul. It stood in front of Lu Chen, its bloodshot eyes almost popping out of their sockets. It stared straight at Lu Chen with an extremely excited expression on its face. But he only had an exaggerated expression and didn't do anything. He stood in front of Lu Chen honestly. That person said slowly with a dry and hoarse voice, I am bait for fishing. The door to the underworld is about to open. There will be a lot of living people coming in. He, yang qi, a lot of yang qi. I am bait. Lu Chen widened his eyes. Fortunately, he didn't say anything just now. Otherwise, there would be a lot of trouble. Where are your people? They are around. Let me take you out. They can catch you. Lu Chen frowned. Did you see two young human men before? About 10 days ago. Many young human men were sucked dry. Lu Chen's eyes suddenly burned with anger. Li Wei pulled Lu Chen back. Nameless, I think there are other entrances to the door to the underworld. He might not be talking about Wuxia and Skyfall. Those two are not weak and smart. They shouldn't be caught so easily. Tian. Skyfall. Unexpectedly, the soul suddenly spoke. You're talking about the human who uses a sword and the spirit user who uses 5-colored spiritual energy. They ran away. Chapter 10:13. Wu Xian and Skyfall ran away. Lu Chen finally heaved a sigh of relief. Where did they go? They ran in the direction of the ghost soldier area. The revenant finished speaking and his body trembled. Li Wei saw this and hurriedly said, Nameless, what do you want to know? Ask quickly. I don't know why the time in the fox demon's illusion is so short. Lu Chen nodded and spoke faster, why did you open the door to the underworld? What is your purpose? The resources of the 9 heavens of the underworld are too scarce. We have to rush out of the underworld. The 4 major areas are speeding up the collection and transformation of yang qi for us to use in battle. We want to go to your world. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Sure enough, the underworld also had its own independent Jiutian system. Chang Ming said that death was not the end, but the beginning. Was he referring to this? The revenant's body was already trying to break free from his control. Who is helping you make this happen? Lu Chen asked. I don't know, are all the people who died in the 6 heavens here? Yes. It's just that every dead person's soul is more or less incomplete. Among the Jiutian, how many people are willing to die? Since they are unwilling, they can't really be without regrets. No, it's us. We are no longer who we used to be. Where is the flower of the underworld? I don't know. It's so uncomfortable. Lu Chen still had too many questions, but Li Wei pulled Lu Chen and shook her head at him. It's too late. We can't get anything out of him. I have to let him go. Otherwise, we will be exposed. Li Wei waved her hand and the revenant walked out of the bushes. After a few steps, he shuddered and looked back at the bushes strangely. Why am I here? He seemed to feel that something was wrong and came to the bushes to check. But after searching for a long time, he didn't find anything unusual and could only leave resentfully. Lu Chen and Li Wei had already retreated hundreds of meters and were now hiding in the woods by the river. Both of them looked solemn. He said that those who died in the sixth heaven were all in the underworld. That is to say, all the past experts, even the legendary experts, are all here. Lu Chen looked at Li Wei in shock. Li Wei nodded absent-mindedly. He just said that the people who died in the past are all here. Li Wei, what's wrong with you? Lu Chen sensed that something was wrong with Li Wei. When Li Wei lifted her head, her eyes were filled with tears. I just thought of my people, but soon, Li Wei held back her tears and shook her head. I'm fine. Let's analyze the situation first. This matter is of great importance. Lu Chen suddenly interrupted her. Li Wei, what happened to your people? Can you tell me? Maybe we can do something. Li Wei shook her head. We can't do anything. After coming to the underworld, we can't be reborn. Our memories have been wiped and rebuilt. They are no longer my people, nameless. Actually, the Fox clan is not afraid of dying. We have lived for a very, very long time. Only those who are alive have to shoulder more responsibilities. I will definitely take revenge for the Fox clan. Seeing that Li Wei was unwilling to reveal more, Lu Chen could only sigh. Li Wei, if you need me in the future, you can look for me anytime. Of course. Don't forget that you owe me a favor. Li Wei's tear-filled eyes carried a slight trace of a forced smile. Alright, let's not talk about my matters. From the current information they had, Wuxia and Skyfall at least did not prove that they were dead. In addition, there should be more than one door to the underworld. I don't know if the door to the underworld has anything to do with the abnormality of your main spirit vein. If the main spirit vein was an ancient problem with the door to the underworld, then this problem can be traced back to 400 years ago. Lu Chen thought carefully and said, it shouldn't be related. This tunnel shouldn't have been formed that long ago. However, Li Wei said, that might not be the case. You are only following the path that I left behind. Actually, there are many places that we have not been to. Perhaps the path that leads to the Demonic Academy's Cliff of Reflection is newly formed, but we don't know about the other tunnels. Moreover, there is more than one door to the underworld. It seems that this matter still needs to be investigated. The underworld army is terrifying. It's best that we don't barge in. If we can find Skyfall and Wuxian first, we might be able to get more information, Li Wei suggested. Lu Chen nodded. Yes, let's find them first. After all, rescuing these two guys is also our top priority. They barged through the ghouls area. Now that they are out in the open, it's best that we don't barge in. It'll be easier for us to do things in the future. Lu Chen looked at Li Wei. Then let's wait for the right time. I don't believe that the ghouls don't need to rest. Okay. Li Wei nodded. The two of them returned to the ball of shrubbery. At this time, the ghouls who acted as bait in the distance had changed and were wandering in the distance. Lu Chen and Li Wei hid here and observed quietly. In our world, it should be 6:00 in the morning. Li Wei said, look, that guy's energy is obviously not as good as the previous one. I guess their time is reversed. Lu Chen also noticed this. He wondered if they would be more tired at noon. However, at this moment, a few figures flashed in the distance. Living people. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Lu Chen and Li Wei just noticed them when they rushed in front of the ghouls. One of them held a long sword and placed it on the ghoul's neck. Speak. Did you see a 16 or 17-year-old girl with long hair passing by here? The ghouls trembled in fear. Sir, you are living people. Why did you come to our place? Stop talking nonsense and answer my question. A 16 or 17-year-old girl with long hair. I think, oh, I remember. The ghouls who looked so weak suddenly leaned on the blade of the sword. With a puff, a deep mark appeared on the ghoul's neck, however, no blood spurted out. He quickly retreated and smiled at the 6 or 7 immortal cultivators. Every day, 16 or 17-year-old girls pass by here. I don't know which one you are talking about. I think, why don't you go to the Yang Cauldron and look for her? Maybe you can find her. Just as he finished speaking, a large number of people rushed out from the surroundings. At least 2,000 to 3,000 people. The army surrounded the 7 immortal cultivators. Another fat sheep came to our door. The ghouls were led by a man from the Ox Head clan. He was 2 to 3 meters tall and also had a badge on his chest. There was a black fog lingering in front of the badge, making it impossible to see his level. Li Wei's eyes suddenly turned red. After careful observation, she read out the words on the badge. Underworld 8 stars Great Spectral Cultivator. Position, Captain of the Army of the Dead. After observing the badge, Li Wei's eyes became clear again. She shook her head. I don't know how strong the Underworld 8 stars Great Spectral Cultivator is, but those few immortal cultivators are only at the 5 stars Theo the Great. I'm afraid they are doomed. Nameless, what do you mean? Chapter 10:14. If he's only commanding 2,000 to 3,000 people, I believe that the 8-star Great Spectral Cultivator's level should be similar to the Great Emperor of 8 stars. Lu Chen deduced. I don't know if these people came from prosperous origin continent. Regardless, they might know some useful information. Lu Chen's intention was clear. He wanted to save these people. Nameless, when I used the Fox Demon's illusory realm earlier, I clearly felt that the spiritual energy here is different from the spiritual energy we use. Our combat power should be greatly reduced here. Lu Chen nodded. He was not afraid of the spiritual energy being different. After all, he was using chaos spiritual energy. Everything in the world originated from chaos spiritual energy, and the underworld could not escape from this range. Therefore, Lu Chen did not feel that his strength was affected. However, facing so many experts from the army of the dead, it was hard to say whether Lu Chen could escape quickly. After all, they did not know the strength of the army of the dead. These guys were not the war souls from the Soul Martial Hall. My strength won't be affected. It's just that there are too many enemies, so it's hard to judge their strength. Damn it, I can only give it a shot. Lu Chen cursed. Li Wei, you stay here to provide support, Li Wei interrupted Lu Chen. Nameless, if I help you by 3 seconds, can you think of a way to save them? Lu Chen looked at Li Wei in surprise. There are 2,000 to 3,000 army of the dead here. Can your Fox Demon's illusory realm control so many people? Fox Demon's illusory realm can't, but Fox Demon's illusory space can. However, I estimate that it can only affect them for a few seconds at most. After a long time, I will have to activate Soul Body as one, Li Wei explained. Li Wei also had a concept skill. This would be much easier to deal with. Lu Chen immediately said, 3 seconds is enough. Okay, then get ready to move. On the other side, Li Wei activated her status. Her pair of white fox ears doubled in size and rested on top of her head playfully. Her eyes turned reddish-brown. Fox Demon's illusory space. Nameless, do it. Lu Chen quickly made his move. Triple gate. I am all ears. The group of immortal cultivators who were chasing after the girl were currently paying full attention to the army of the dead around them. Third brother, we've been ambushed. This. Linger couldn't have already been killed by them, right? I'm going to fight them to the death. A middle-aged man was filled with grief and indignation, his eyes red. That girl probably had a close relationship with him. Third brother, now is not the time to be impulsive. Our strength here is not as good as outside. These people don't seem to be easy to deal with. Everyone, maintain the formation. Let's get back to Celestial Fortress and call for reinforcements. At this moment, the Minotaur commander laughed maniacally. Call for reinforcements? Do you think you have a chance to escape? Arrest him. After saying that, the Minotaur took the lead and smashed the giant hammer in his hand towards them. One of the immortal cultivators roared and moved quickly. Don't be so arrogant, you bastard. I'm also the great emperor of 8 stars. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Immortal Buddha iron wall. He blocked it with his metal gloves. With a boom, that immortal cultivator was hit and sent flying 100 meters away. He spat out several mouthfuls of blood and fell to the ground, unable to get up. Sixth brother. How is this possible? Sixth brother is also the great emperor of 8 stars. How can he not be able to take such an ordinary hit? The Minotaur spectral cultivator sneered. Who told you that my strength is comparable to the great emperor of 8 stars? What a joke. You enjoy a lot of resources and spiritual energy. Cultivating to the great emperor of 8 stars is as easy as eating and drinking for you. But for us, guarding this barren netherworld, every bit of spiritual energy has to be used separately. How difficult is it to raise our level? I'm not afraid to tell you that even if our spiritual energy is the same, in terms of actual combat ability, even if we're not in the netherworld, I can still kill him in an instant. We in the netherworld should enjoy better resources. Not trash like you. What are you waiting for? Take them all away. At this moment, those immortal cultivators were no longer as impulsive as before. The Minotaur spectral cultivator's blow had completely awakened them. Not only was the spectral cultivator's combat ability off the charts, but he was also like a fish in water in the netherworld. They were no match for him at all. Oh no, I'm afraid we're going to die here. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion among the army of the dead. The murderous intent in the eyes of these army of the dead disappeared, and they suddenly became dull and confused. In the next moment, 3 stone doors quickly appeared in front of these people. Then, a suction force came from behind the doors and sucked 3 people away. Second brother. But before they could chase after them, the stone doors opened again and pulled the remaining people away. The Minotaur spectral cultivator, who was the first to wake up, quickly realized something and shouted angrily, waking the others up. They have helpers. Search for them. At this moment, Lu Chen had already led this group of people away and disappeared without a trace. Lu Chen and the others only stopped when they reached a forest. The army of the dead shouldn't be able to chase them here. Among the people in Celestial Fortress, a man in his 40s cupped his fists to Lu Chen and Li Wei. Thank you for your help. I, Ironwood, am eternally grateful. The others also expressed their thanks. It's nothing. Don't take it to heart. Lu Chen said, may I ask, which continent are you from? The few people glanced at each other, and Ironwood said, we're from the Azure Marsh continent. Little brother, are you not from the Azure Marsh continent? Then how did you come to the underworld? Lu Chen had a rough idea. It seemed that these people didn't know much. My friend and I are from the Xingyuan continent. A friend accidentally came here and came to look for us. Xingyuan continent. I've heard of it. Your headquarters there seems to be called Zhongxiangu, right? One of the people in Celestial Fortress said. Yes. You're really from the Xingyuan continent. That person looked pensive. It's just that the Xingyuan continent is very far from our Azure Marsh star path. I didn't expect that we would meet here. Could it be that the entrance to the underworld doesn't only appear in our Azure Marsh continent? These people finally understood. Of course, everyone had different information. To be able to react so quickly, these people in Celestial Fortress weren't stupid. In fact, Lu Chen had just confirmed that the entrance to the underworld had indeed appeared in various continents. Both sides exchanged some information, and Lu Chen learned that the Celestial Fortress was the headquarters of the Azure Marsh continent. In the Azure Marsh continent, the entrance to the underworld had been exposed, but the Celestial Fortress temporarily prohibited others from entering. The daughter of Ironwood's third junior brother, Omen, secretly ran in because of her high talent. However, there had been no news of her for several days. Lu Chen felt the same. If Skyfall and Wuxia weren't geniuses, they would have reported it long ago. Why would they come in by themselves? It seems that this matter is much more serious than we thought. Ironwood's expression was solemn. Omen, don't worry. Now that we know the strength of the army of the dead, we can't act rashly. My two friends, since we met here, why don't we work together? You help us find Linger, and we help you find your two disciples. Lu Chen nodded. I have no objections. Then let's elect a temporary team leader. Ironwood looked at Li Wei. Miss, may I ask what your level is, 1-star human king realm? The people in Celestial Fortress couldn't help but gasp. Although they weren't far from the human king realm, the higher the level, the greater the difference of 1 star. Moreover, the human king realm and Theo the Great were a whole realm apart. Then, is it okay if Miss leads the team? Li Wei shook her head. Let him lead the team. The group followed Li Wei's gaze and fell on Lu Chen. To be precise, it fell on the badge on Lu Chen's chest. Among these people, his badge was the only one that could be seen at a glance. 1 star, Wild Great, Cultivator. Chapter 10-15. Seeing the doubtful faces of the Celestial Fortress members, Li Wei had no choice but to explain, he was the one who saved you. With that, the Celestial Fortress members no longer had any objections. Alright, then we will listen to little brother's command. Lu Chen nodded. First, he understood everyone's level and strength. On the Celestial Fortress side, the eldest Ironwood was a 9-star Theo the Great. The third brother, Omen, the second brother, the injured man, Guangji, and the fifth sister, Agarwood, were all 8-star Theo the Great. The fourth, sixth, and seventh brothers were 7-star Theo the Great. The strength of this group was not weak. One must know that at this level, if placed in Xingyuan continent, they would be able to become a teacher in the Holy Court. Among them, the eldest, Ironwood, looked to be in his prime and had great potential. Nameless, this is Li Wei. After getting to know each other, they began to plan their strategy. They mentioned the sun drawing furnace before. It seems that the captured people will be sent there. We have to find a way to sneak in. Lu Chen said, then let's go to the center of the departed soul area. Anyway, we have to pass through there to reach the ghost soldier area. Ironwood asked puzzledly, Nameless brother, how do you know so much about this place? What departed soul area, ghost soldier area, how do you know about it? Lu Chen smiled and took out the underworld's heavenly domain compass. I have a map. This, Ironwood's eyes widened. Obviously, there were no treasures in this world. This compass was used to it. But how did this brat have such a thing? While they were planning their strategy, Lu Chen asked Little Green to treat his second brother's injuries. Guangji's injuries were not too serious. After eating some pills, he recovered a lot. Second brother, are you alright? It's nothing serious. Guangji cupped his fists towards Lu Yi, Lu Chen, and Li Wei. Thank you for saving me this time. Lu Chen knew the way and saved people twice. Even if Lu Chen's level was ridiculously low, everyone began to realize that this young wild grand cultivator was not as simple as he looked. After waiting for 2 hours, Lu Chen and the others quietly set off for the City of Dead Souls. This time, Lu Chen and the others were all experienced. As long as they saw a lone soul, they would carefully observe their surroundings and avoid the army of the dead that was lying in ambush. More than an hour later, it should be about 10 o'clock in the morning outside. They finally saw a dim city not far away. There were people guarding the city gate. There weren't many of them, but from time to time, there would be small teams escorting people into the city. Nameless, the guards look a little lethargic. I'm guessing that their time is reversed with ours. For them, this should be the time when they are the most tired, Ironwood said. Lu Chen nodded. He had already thought of this. Even if they looked a little tired, the city was still heavily guarded. They couldn't just swagger into the city. We have to think of a way to get in. Lu Chen frowned. At this moment, not far away, a small team escorted two Sky Fiend Immortal Cultivators towards the city gate. The Sky Fiend Immortal Cultivators were already covered in blood. They were imprisoned in a metal cage and carried by a giant ghoul. It looked like there had been a fierce battle before. Unfortunately, they were no match for the ghoul and were captured. The small team escorting them was not many, less than 10 people. They leisurely escorted the two to the city gate. The leader of the army of the dead seemed to know the guards at the city gate. He greeted them from afar. Lao man, after your shift, come to my house for a drink. The guard shook his head helplessly. This is the headquarters. What shift? My shift lasts for one night. How's your team? Why did you only catch 2 today? Sigh, don't mention it. Our gate to the underworld hasn't been completely opened yet. Every day, there are only 2 or 3 kittens. See, the team leader caught them and let us escort them back. These 2 Sky Fiend Immortals don't have much yang qi. They probably have too much fun. The Sky Fiend Immortal Cultivators are better than the dwarves, Lao Man said. The yang qi of the dwarves, sigh, I don't think it's enough for me to go out for a month. Let's not talk about the dwarves. They're too lecherous. Oh right, Lao Man, our team leader said there might be more prey behind these 2. I think there will be more teams coming. I have to hurry to the Yang Furnace to register. I'll be going first. Okay. The team quickly entered the city gate. In the dark, Lu Chen turned around to look at the crowd. It seemed like they were coming. We'll disguise ourselves as them and enter the city. Ah. Is this okay? Omen was a little worried. Lu Chen said, there's no better way now. We can only give it a try. Li Wei, can you use illusion to disguise us? Li Wei thought for a moment. Yes. How long can you last? If you can restrain your aura, I can last for about 30 seconds. That's not a problem. Our celestial fortress focuses on spiritual power control. Ironwood said. Finally, Li Wei's gaze fell on Lu Chen. Lu Chen knew that she was afraid that his level was too low and couldn't restrain his spiritual power. Don't worry about me. They can't feel my spiritual power. Lu Chen thought for a moment and said, 30 seconds should be enough. Then Lu Chen said to Guangxi, you can be the hostage. Get more blood on your body. The problem now is that we don't have ghouls, but since Li Wei can create illusions, we can just use a mount that's about the same size. Omen suddenly summoned a stone monkey. Nameless, Xiao Mao can turn into a ghoul. Although it can't imitate its aura, it should be better than finding a random one. Lu Chen said in surprise, that's great. Everyone get ready. On the other side, Guangxi coughed up blood. His body was covered in blood. Then, he lay on Xiao Mao's back. After the others were ready, Li Wei used illusion to disguise everyone. Not long after, they walked out of the forest and hurried towards the city gate. It had to be said that Lu Chen easily blended in. In the inn, he was treated as a waiter. In the 5th layer of heaven, he was treated as a native. In the underworld, he looked like a ghost. The most important thing wasn't that he looked like a ghost, but the type of spiritual power he had. The chaotic spiritual power was enough to make people unable to identify him through his aura. In addition to Li Wei's illusion, there was no difference between him and a ghost. Lao Man. Lu Chen greeted him from afar. Are you on the night shift today? Lao Man was dumbfounded. Who is this person? Do I know him? Why does he seem so familiar with me? As an excellent guard, Lao Man didn't get carried away by Lu Chen's enthusiasm. He frowned and stopped Lu Chen's group. When Lao Man stopped them, everyone's heart tightened. If they were stopped here, they would definitely be doomed. Lao Man looked at Lu Chen and then looked at their group. Although he didn't see anything unusual, just a group of army of the dead holding a captive into the city, he felt that something was wrong. Seeing that the guards weren't willing to let them go, he was afraid that something would happen if this dragged on. Without waiting for Lao Man to speak, Lu Chen quickly said, "What's wrong, Lao Man? Aya, if you want to check, hurry up. Captain didn't stop just now and beat this person half to death. If you're any slower, I'm afraid that you won't be able to collect much yang energy. What about the headquarters? I don't know if the yang cauldron has been registered yet. I'm so anxious." Guangxi quickly received Lu Chen's signal. He coughed violently and spat out mouthfuls of blood. He muttered, "Let go of me. You guys, what are you guys planning? I'll fight it out with you guys." After saying that, he spat out another mouthful of blood. His head tilted, and it looked like he was about to die. Everyone was stunned. Guangxi's acting was really good. Chapter 10:16. Veteran actors could often stimulate others' acting skills. Since Guangxi's acting skills exploded, everyone immediately entered the zone. Aya, don't tell me he's dead. It's not easy to find someone with enough yang energy. If he dies, it's over. Lao Man, hurry up. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the responsibility. Ironwood said angrily. It's rare to find an old virgin human. Look at his abundant yang energy. Even coughing blood makes my heart ache. Guangxi's face was a little green. It was unknown whether it was because of coughing blood or because of anger. Holding his last breath, Guangxi climbed up to add more scenes for himself. You guys are worse than beasts. After saying that, he lay down again. It felt a little like the final radiance of the setting sun. It's over, it's over. I'm really going to die. What do you want to investigate? Didn't you just go to the headquarters? We're fighting outside, but you guys are still making things difficult for us. Don't you feel ashamed? Where's your captain? Ask him to come over. Who's responsible for this person's death? Ask him to be the judge. Lao Man also had black lines on his forehead. It seemed like he had gotten himself into trouble. Ahem, I didn't want to investigate you guys. You guys quickly go in. That guy isn't dead yet. He should be able to be saved. No, what if he dies on the way? This responsibility has to be explained clearly. Agarwood was completely immersed in her role. Aya, you guys hurry up and leave. If you don't leave, you're really going to die here. No. Agarwood put her hands on her waist. She looked like she was going to have a good argument. Lu Chen quickly pulled Agarwood back. Don't argue at this time. My lady, don't argue. Hurry up and send him over. Lao Man, we'll go first. If there's anything, we'll look for you. Lao Man watched this group of people enter the city. He was already sweating profusely. Finally, they left. I almost caused trouble. Why do those people look a little strange? Are they going to the Yang Cauldron? Forget it, I'll just ignore them. If the hostage really dies in their hands, it'll be troublesome. Lao Man finally thought it through. He shook his head and returned to his post. As soon as the group entered the city, they quickly hid in an alley. I'm finally here. Ironwood said while gasping for breath. It was really thrilling just now. Li Wei's illusion was almost broken. Do these ghosts have houses to live in? He even has his own city. Sixth brother shook his head and sighed. I don't think it's strange. Li Wei said, the underworld has its own 9 levels of heaven, which means that the people here are just like us, cultivating to become stronger and reaching here step by step. It's not surprising that they have cities and forces. Sixth brother nodded. Indeed. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to organize the opening of the gate to the underworld. While everyone was talking, Guangxi suddenly sat up straight. He was covered in blood and looked a little scary. He looked at Agarwood with resentment. Agarwood, did you just say that I'm an old virgin? Come, second senior brother, I have to talk to you alone. Senior brother, don't worry. I won't look down on you. It shows that you're pure. Agarwood said while snickering. Among the people in Celestial Fortress, other than Ironwood and Omen, who were relatively calm, the others didn't seem to be honest either. Lu Chen smiled as he looked at his teammates behind him. Their bickering reminded him of his friends. However, Lu Chen inadvertently saw Li Wei grinning at him mysteriously. Lu Chen was rushing to the market and pretended not to see it. Li Wei could be considered to have gotten a hold of the old virgin incident. At this time, there was almost no one walking around in the city. There were also no patrol teams here. It seemed that they weren't worried about people sneaking into the city of the dead souls. The guards are not strict. Now is their resting time. Let's hurry to the Yang furnace. Lu Chen pulled the topic back on track. Most importantly, where's the Yang furnace? Ironwood frowned. At this moment, Omen said faintly, isn't it, there? Everyone followed his gaze. In the distant sky, there was a red beam of light shooting up to the sky. That's... Lu Chen's eyes widened. It seemed that the most special place in the city was under that beam of light. Let's go take a look. Everyone be careful. Every district has a ruler. The strength of the previous team leader was already very terrifying. Lu Chen reminded. What? Every district has a ruler. The underworld is too dangerous. I don't know if Ling or will be able to escape. Tian Zhao's face was full of worry. Third brother, don't worry. Linger is so smart. His companion comforted him. Don't think too much now. Let's go take a look first. Taking advantage of the empty streets, the few of them carefully shuttled closer to the beam of light. The beam of light shot out from a valley behind the city. While Lu Chen and the others were waiting, several groups of people entered the valley with seriously injured cultivators. However, they would come out soon, but the hostages they were escorting were gone. The Yang furnace should be in the valley. I remember that the headquarters said that they had to register it. That is to say, every cultivator sent here would be recorded. Lu Chen said, let's find a way to go in and check if Linger is in the records. Omen nodded and then looked at the valley entrance. Strange, there doesn't seem to be any guards here. Lu Chen thought for a moment. Let's use the old method to sneak in and take a look. After everyone was ready, they entered the valley. After entering the valley, everyone could clearly feel that the temperature in the valley was very high. However, there were no guards here. Only a few people wearing black robes were busy. They seemed to be the staff here. Not long after they entered, a black-robed man walked over. Where are you going? As he spoke, he walked over and glanced at Guangxi. Then, he placed an 8-trigram disc in front of Guangxi's chest. Soon, a row of information appeared on Guangxi's body. Race, human. Age, 421. Gender, male. Realm, the Great Emperor of 8 stars. Yang energy content, supreme grade. Allocation, number 1 Yang furnace. Lu Chen had a strange feeling. It was as if they had suddenly become some kind of item, a magic treasure, not bad, a supreme-grade male. It's very rare. Even a Soul King would be happy. Did you register it before? The man said as he flipped through the account book in his hand. They didn't know which team was in the headquarters. If they registered it again, they would definitely be exposed. Lu Chen hurriedly said, "We registered it." Registered it? Whose team are you? I don't see any supreme-grade human male records here. Where did you register? Everyone knew that they were about to be discovered. Lu Chen was still stalling for time. We registered under the headquarters. Headquarters? Who is it? Just as this person was talking to Lu Chen, Li Wei's eyes instantly turned red. Her gaze fell on the badge on his chest. Li Wei made a gesture to Lu Chen, 6-star Great Spectral Cultivator. While that person was looking down at the account book, Lu Chen turned his head and made a throat-slitting gesture to the others. Everyone immediately understood. Sir, it's here. Lu Chen walked forward. Just as the other party let down his guard, Lu Chen saw that there was no one around. He used night flash to the back of that person and covered his mouth. Omen and the others followed closely behind and stabbed the person's heart several times. Chapter 10:17. These people were clearly experts, and they were well aware of the consequences if they failed. The black-robed soul was instantly pierced into a sieve. Lu Chen covered his mouth tightly, and his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. But as his life force gradually weakened, the shock on his face gradually calmed down, and his eyes even seemed to be smiling. A wisp of black smoke escaped from Lu Chen's fingers. Lu Chen tried to let go, but that person's eyes were smiling, and his expression was a little crazy. You can't escape. After saying this, he fell limply to the ground. Nameless, why is he smiling? Li Wei felt that something was amiss, but she couldn't tell what was wrong. Lu Chen shook his head. I've heard of a saying before. When people die, they become ghosts, and when ghosts die, they become skeletons. And in the underworld, there's also a skeletons area. I'm thinking, could he have gone to the skeletons area? Then won't we be exposed soon? Ironwood said anxiously. Lu Chen's expression was serious. We don't know much about the situation here, so we have to prepare for the worst. Before they catch us, we have to save the three of them. Everyone quickly found a hiding place and flipped through the accounts. Linger should have entered the underworld 12 days ago. Let's just check the records of that day, someone suggested. Lu Chen quickly checked the accounts. There was a memo in the records from 12 days ago. The escapee is a human girl. She looks to be 17 or 18 years old. Her main weapon is the purple and green twin swords. She escaped the encirclement under the cover of a soul-collecting banner. She escaped in the direction of the ghost soldier area. Her current whereabouts are unknown. Seeing this, Omen was extremely excited. This is referring to Linger. Linger uses the purple and green twin swords. Master also gave her a soul-collecting banner. That's great, Linger really escaped. Ironwood and the others also let out a sigh of relief. Lu Chen flipped to the records from 10 days ago. On this day, it was recorded that Wuxia and Skyfall had escaped. Nameless brother, your two good friends have also escaped. Ironwood said. Previously, Lu Chen had only said that the two of them were disciples, but he did not say that he was the dean. Ironwood had thought that Lu Chen was their senior brother. Those two brats are still somewhat useful. Lu Chen shook his head. Since they had arrived at the Sun Draw Cauldron, Lu Chen and the others took advantage of the opportunity to investigate further. However, they discovered that these teams were actually not qualified to approach the Sun Draw Cauldron. They would follow the staff and push the captured immortal cultivators into a total of 9 pits according to the designated locations. Then, the mission would be completed. On the other side of the valley, they saw a group of people carrying out dried corpses. These dried corpses, regardless of gender, age, or race, were all stripped and carried by the ghouls to the Black River outside the valley, where they were casually tossed into the river. Even Lu Chen felt particularly disgusted when he saw this scene. They should have been sucked dry of their essence. There are actually so many of them. Ironwood was shocked. If the door to the underworld opens, it will be terrible in the future. Lu Chen shook his head. Our whereabouts may have been exposed. We should not stay here for long. Let's leave here first. The group quickly left the place. When they came out of the valley, they did not encounter any danger. However, when they were leaving the city gate, Lu Chen discovered from afar that there were many more guards at the city gate. Not only did the number of guards increase, but the originally deserted street was suddenly filled with a lot of people. Lu Chen hurriedly led the team to turn the corner. There is something wrong over there. There are at least 3 times more guards than before. Lu Chen said in a low voice. Have we been discovered? Tai Mu asked with a frown. It doesn't seem like it. The surrounding residents have also come out. So, maybe it's not because of us. Lu Chen deduced, don't worry, let's wait and see. Just as they were hiding at the corner, the crowd on the street suddenly became restless. The guards near the city gate quickly got into formation, looking serious and standing straight. Not long after, a team walked in from outside the city gate. Several huge and ugly magical beasts opened the way, bearing their fangs and brandishing their claws. If it were not for their masters following behind them, they would have eaten the onlookers and the guards. Are these their battle pets? 3-headed hellhound, hell-black dragon, dark fire poison dragon. Good heavens, they are all original battle pets. Ironwood narrowed his eyes slightly. Lu Chen also opened his eyes wide. This was the first time he had seen such powerful original battle pets since he came to the 6th layer of heaven. Behind the original battle pets, there were 3 people, 2 men and a woman. One of the men was skinny and the other was fat. The woman's side face was somewhat beautiful, but her skin was beautiful. When she turned her head, the skin on the right side of her face was rotten, instantly ruining her beautiful face. However, although these 3 people looked strange, the pressure they gave off was incomparable. Obviously, they were the top powerhouses of the City of Dead Souls. Look, it's the 3 spirit envoys. When the spirit envoys come out, how many people can defeat them? Those few people who escaped should have been caught. The discussion of the nearby residents was heard, and Lu Chen and the rest heard it too. These 3 people were the spirit envoys of the City of Dead Souls. No wonder their pressure was so obvious. Behind the 3 people, there were 3 humans being escorted. When they saw these 3 people, Lu Chen and the rest suddenly had their hearts in their throats. Wu Xian, Skyfall, and Linger. The 3 of them were all covered in blood. It seemed that they had been captured by the 3 spirit envoys after a fierce battle. At this moment, the 3 of them were expressionless. They should know the consequences of being captured. Here, no one would save them. There was only one outcome waiting for them. There were some troops behind them, following behind the 3 spirit envoys, escorting the 3 of them through the streets. There was a soldier shouting at the side, these 3 people escaped from the City of Dead Souls, but our City of Dead Souls is not a place where they can come and go as they please. As long as they are sent here alive, there is only one outcome, and that is to become our army's provisions, to provide yang energy for our army of the dead, so that we can conquer the world of the living. The enthusiasm of the crowd was very high, and they echoed loudly. Want to run? Don't you know where you are? I don't care who you are. Once you are in the underworld, you will be at our mercy. With the 3 spirit envoys, there is no chance of failure. The troops escorted the 3 of them to a square. The skinny man stood on the stage and said loudly to everyone below the stage, "These three people made us waste some time and consumed our resources. But these three people, one of them is a spirit user with 5-colored spirit energy. The other one cultivates the pure yang heart technique. They are all of the best quality that can provide a large amount of yang energy. This girl cultivates the Xian Yin heart technique. She is a great supplement for cultivation." There was a commotion below the stage. A pure yang body, a pure yin body, and a 5-colored spirit user. Oh my, no wonder these three people could escape. They are not simple. Yes, if they were in the world of the living, they would be first-class geniuses. Who cares if they are geniuses or fools? I only know that they are delicious. The skinny man said loudly, covering the voices below the stage. Currently, more and more continents are opening the door to the underworld. It is time for us to test our skills. These three people are the top geniuses of their respective sections. We have already sent out messengers to inform the people in their sects to come and rescue them. When the time comes, we will catch them all in one fell swoop. We can replenish a large amount of yang energy and help our army of the dead to conquer the world of the living. Chapter 10:18. This group of dead souls was no longer satisfied with catching 2 small fishes, they were going to send people into the underworld on a large scale. And the first batch of targets were the Demonic Academy and Celestial Fortress. Damn it, these guys. Lu Chen's eyes were already burning with anger. Nameless, calm down first, my illusion can't hold on any longer. There's still time, let's take advantage of the chaos and retreat. Li Wei pulled Lu Chen back. Ironwood also said, they said it will only start in 15 days, we still have time, let's retreat first. Although Lu Chen was furious, he knew that rushing out now would be courting death, so he could only turn around and lead the team out of the City of Dead Souls. Everyone temporarily set up camp in the forest far away from the City of Dead Souls. Originally, everyone had planned to return and report the news, but who would have thought that the 2 entrances to the Netherworld on Prosperous Source Continent and Azure Pond Continent would be heavily guarded by the Netherworld army. It seemed that they had been deployed to receive their messengers. This put Lu Chen's team in a dilemma. Helpless, they retreated back into the forest. After staying here for a day, they realized that there was also a day and night difference here, but it was not as obvious as in the Yang world. The time of day here corresponded to the time of night in the Yang world. The sky was redder and brighter, but it turned dark red at night. On the 3rd day, before Lu Chen and the rest could come up with a solution, Guangxi, who was in charge of security, rushed back. Not good, there's an army of the dead searching this forest. I took a look, it doesn't seem to be the army of the dead from the City of Dead Souls, their clothes are different, and when they meet the City of Dead Souls troops on the road, they would go forward to confirm. Not good, it seems that the 6-star Great Spectral Cultivator that we killed previously used some method to expose our whereabouts. At this time, everyone was in a very dangerous situation. Everyone, let's move first. Just as Lu Chen finished speaking, the ground began to shake. Across the forest, Lu Chen could see a huge Cerberus charging towards them. Over there, men, follow it quickly. Someone behind the Cerberus shouted. Not good, they can find us. Retreat quickly. Lu Chen shouted in a low voice, and everyone hurriedly moved. Li Wei casually set up a fox demon illusion, but the hellhound did not fall for it at all. It charged straight at them. Damn it, I can't shake him off. Li Wei had no choice but to retreat quickly. The hellhound rampaged through the forest, breaking the trees. No matter how these people tried to escape, they were unable to shake it off. Seeing that Cerberus was getting closer and closer to them, Guangxi suddenly stopped. Boss, Nameless, you guys go first. Second brother, you can't stay. Omen grabbed Guangxi's arm tightly. Guangxi pushed Omen away. Lao San, you must save Linger. I have no children. She is my daughter. Now is not the time to dawdle. For the sake of Linger, hurry and leave. With that, Guangxi charged towards the Cerberus. Bastard, let me have a go at you. Second brother. Omen's eyes widened in anger. Seeing this, Ironwood quickly pulled Omen back. It's too late. Hurry and leave. Not long after, sounds of fighting came from behind. However, there were too many of them. Guangxi did not have the chance to block the Hellhound before he was surrounded by the other army of the dead. That Hellhound is coming again. It seemed that it was impossible for one person to block the Hellhound. Ironwood, Agarwood, and the rest all stopped. Omen, we will block them. Nameless, we beg you. You must help second brother save Linger. We watched that child grow up. She has unlimited potential and is much more useful than us old guys. Nothing must happen to her. You guys. Lu Chen looked at them anxiously and with heartache. At this moment, Omen suddenly spoke. What kind of joke are you guys playing? We brothers have already said that we will go through thick and thin together. How can I leave you guys behind and leave alone? Omen, even if it's for Linger, you have to leave first. Ironwood said in a low voice. Omen shook his head. Nameless brother, our lives were saved by you. Naturally, we should be the ones holding up the rear. However, Omen begs Nameless brother and Miss Li Wei. If there's a chance, please help me save Linger. I can't leave them behind. Lu Chen's mind was already in a mess. Although he had only spent a few days with the people from Celestial Fortress, everyone had stayed behind for the same purpose. They had infiltrated the fortress several times and were surrounded by danger. It could be said that they had gone through life and death together. At this moment, seeing that they had stayed behind to cover for him, Lu Chen felt extremely uncomfortable. Nameless brother, I have seen countless people. I can see that you are a person who values friendship and righteousness. Such a person is very rare nowadays. Alright, you guys hurry up and leave. Don't let our sacrifice be in vain. Omen finished speaking and pushed Lu Chen away. Hurry up and leave. Li Wei pulled Lu Chen, who was still in a daze. Nameless, although there may not be any hope of escaping, if we can't escape, then there really won't be any hope left. Lu Chen naturally understood this logic. Even if he was extremely unwilling, he could only grit his teeth and flee into the distance. The sounds of fighting behind them were getting further and further away. However, before Lu Chen and the rest could heave a sigh of relief, a few trees in the distance quickly collapsed. Lu Chen and Li Wei looked at each other and a terrifying thought arose in their minds. More hellhounds were coming. The two of them increased their speed and unknowingly rushed out of the dense forest. In front of them was a bottomless abyss. If the two of them had not reacted quickly, they would have fallen straight down. A huge crack lay in front of the two of them. A chilly wind blew through the bottom of the crack, and there were also faint traces of a huge object moving under the sacred academy. It seemed that some terrifying magical beast was lurking below. Lu Chen opened the underworld compass. When the other party was chasing them, they had deliberately forced the two of them into the abyss of eternal calamity. This abyss was larger than the Magic Eye Canyon in the Baisha Kingdom. Moreover, there was a dense forest under the canyon, and no one knew what was at the bottom of the abyss of eternal calamity. A moment later, 7 or 8 hellhounds and a large number of army of the dead rushed out from the forest in all directions. The hellhounds closed in on the two of them step by step. The army of the dead had already surrounded them. The leader was a demon. He looked at Lu Chen and Li Wei with a relaxed expression and laughed. Run, keep running. Do you know what's behind us? The abyss of eternal calamity. Even we don't dare to go down, not to mention you living people. If you go down, you will be doomed eternally. How bold of you to sneak into the city of the dead souls. Unfortunately, you forgot that this is the underworld. The souls of the dead that you kill will come to our nightmare city. Ha 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 ha, how laughable. Who knows how many people who tried to escape were caught by us like this. As he spoke, the man stopped smiling and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. All right, you have nowhere to run now. Come and replenish our army's provisions. At this moment, Li Wei suddenly said softly, jump down. Ah. Lu Chen did not react. This is our only way out. Once we are caught, we have no chance of winning. Not only that, once the door to the underworld opens, the Demonic Academy, Fenglai's Sacred Academy, and Celestial Fortress will all be finished. Lu Chen looked back at the abyss of eternal calamity. Are you sure you want to jump down? It seemed that this was their only way out. Chapter 10-19. Capture him alive. The other side had already made their move. Dozens of lightning-fast black shadows pounced on the two of them. If there were only dozens of people, Lu Chen might try to fight them. However, judging from the number of figures flashing in the forest, there were thousands of people in the army of the dead. Lu Chen couldn't do anything with such a gap in strength. Then jump. Lu Chen didn't care so much. Li Wei, let's go. After saying that, he jumped down the canyon of myriad calamities. However, when Lu Chen jumped down, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. Li Wei didn't jump. Damn, she's still using this trick at this time. Nameless, you owe me a favor. If you can survive, avenge my Fox Demon clan. Li Wei shouted at Lu Chen. The next moment, several people rushed to the edge of the cliff. Don't let him escape. You can use flying skills in the upper 100 meters of the Canyon of Myriad Calamities. Use Soul Net Lock. A sword light suddenly swept from the side and disrupted their formation. Li Wei gripped her long sword tightly and snorted. You want to capture him? Have you asked for my permission? In an instant, Li Wei was entangled with these people. It wasn't difficult for these experts to catch up with Lu Chen when he fell. However, with Li Wei covering for him, none of them had the time to catch Lu Chen. This opportunity was fleeting. Finally, they were sure that they couldn't catch up with Lu Chen. Good, one-star King Realm. You have some skills. The voice of the leader of the army of the dead came from the edge of the cliff. Your man fell into the canyon of myriad calamities. Do you really think he has a chance to survive? Ha 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 ha, how naive. And you, in front of me, have no chance. At the edge of the cliff, the earth shook. It was obvious that a desperate battle was going on. However, Lu Chen couldn't see it. He closed his eyes as a huge wave of guilt washed over him. It's all because of my decision. If I hadn't killed that person, perhaps we wouldn't have been found. Lu Chen gritted his teeth and closed his eyes in pain. Boss! A voice rang out in his mind. It was Limitless Sword. At that time, if you don't kill that person, you will definitely be exposed. Miss Li Wei is right. As long as one person is still alive, there is still a glimmer of hope. Cherish the glimmer of hope that Miss Li Wei has fought for you. Survive in this myriad tribulation abyss. Lu Chen nodded painfully. That's right. The more it was like this, the more he couldn't die. The burden on his shoulders was too heavy. He could not die. Thinking of this, Lu Chen forced himself to stay alert. There seemed to be a powerful suction force pulling Lu Chen's body from the myriad calamity abyss. At first, he didn't feel it when he first fell into the abyss, but now, he couldn't get rid of this suction force. He accelerated his descent. After an unknown amount of time, an incomparably huge shadow suddenly appeared from the cracks in the rock walls on both sides and pounced on Lu Chen. Lu Chen hurriedly used Great Ravager to attack the beast's eyes. The giant beast didn't seem to dare to chase after Lu Chen. It only pounced from one rock wall to the other, covering a distance of over 1,000 meters. After its attack failed, it didn't dare to chase after Lu Chen. It drilled into the crack in the rock wall, only to see a pair of huge red eyes staring at Lu Chen as he fell. That guy seems to be afraid of being sucked in by this suction force. Lu Chen guessed. Unfortunately, he couldn't go to the rock walls on either side. After seeing that gluttonous giant beast, Lu Chen noticed that the cracks on both sides of the rock walls were filled with red dots of light. Those weren't gems, but monsters like the giant beast from before. There were so many of them that the rock walls on both sides faintly glowed with a dark red light. Now, the rock walls were even more dangerous than the myriad calamity abyss. As Lu Chen continued to fall, the suction force became stronger and stronger. Lu Chen's speed also became faster and faster, and his consciousness was almost blurred. After an unknown amount of time, waves of heat came from underground. It was unbearably hot. So hot. Lu Chen was in great pain. At this speed, even with Lu Chen's physical strength, he couldn't withstand it. Moreover, it was extremely hot right now. Light gradually appeared in front of him. Lu Chen squinted his eyes and could barely see it. Where was that? The Earth's core. The surrounding temperature was getting hotter and hotter. His body was about to be evaporated. At this temperature, he would be evaporated into a dried corpse before he could reach the Earth's core. This time, Lu Chen didn't have the desolate Heaven Blood Demon Stone to save his life. Boss, we're in so much pain. Xiao Min and Little Green couldn't bear it anymore. They were hiding in Lu Chen's pet bar. How could they not be able to withstand the high temperature here? This place probably wouldn't stop until one's body, consciousness, and everything else melted. Lu Chen finally understood why this place was called the Abyss of Calamity. If one fell into it, they would be doomed eternally. Even the army of the dead wouldn't be able to withstand this temperature. It was like an oven for evolution. No, I can't die here. If I die, Li Wei, Ironwood, Wuxia, Skyfall, Linger, the Demonic Academy, the Fenglai Academy, the Celestial Fortress, and even the entire Sixth Heaven, the temperature was getting higher and higher. Lu Chen's skin was already starting to peel off. Symbiosis of gods and demons. Soul and body as one. Lu Chen desperately activated his skill. Emptiness of gods and demons arm. Now, only the emptiness of gods and demons arm could move in this environment. He took out the strange flame bead and swallowed it. The strange flame bead increased one's fire affinity and fire skill damage. After swallowing the strange flame bead, Lu Chen felt a lot more comfortable. Kong Lianxin had once told him that he was a chaos spiritual core and that everything in the world originated from chaos. He was indeed an elemental insulator, but at the same time, he was also an elemental symbiotic body. As long as he could use it properly, he could use all kinds of elements. The Earth's core lava had already entered Lu Chen's vision. It was a lava hell. Moreover, this was the Earth's core lava of the underworld. It was even more terrifying. If he fell in, his soul might be burned to ashes. But at this time, Lu Chen shouted, "Selfless. Either you comprehend the fire element of chaos spiritual energy, or you die in the sea of fire." A sea of clouds was holding an emergency meeting. The participants were the instructors of the Demonic Academy and the Fenglai Academy. This was the second time the mysterious person had sent a secret letter. The first letter said that Wuxia and Skyfall had fallen into their hands and asked them to bring people to rescue them. When a sea of clouds received this secret letter, he was just discussing countermeasures with Yi Tian and Kong Lianxin. After all, the Dean was still there, and there might still be a chance to turn things around. But the second letter's content was a bit shocking. Nameless died in battle, and Li Wei was captured. Dean Li Wei was also captured in order to cover for Nameless. In 14 days, they will publicly execute Dean Li Wei, Skyfall, and Wuxian. A sea of clouds said in a heavy tone, they also said that Nameless is dead. Tian was the first to stand up. I don't believe that Nameless is dead. He can't die so easily. A sea of clouds released a shadow stone, which showed the scene of them chasing after Nameless and the others. The people of Celestial Fortress stayed behind to protect them. Nameless jumped into the abyss. Li Wei was seriously injured and captured in order to stop the pursuers. How can they be so strong? Who are they? Long Xiang asked. I don't know. They just said that they were from another continent. But looking at their strength, I can't believe that these strong people couldn't fight back. A sea of clouds shook his head and said, strong people like them don't dare to chase after the abyss. I'm afraid that what they said is true. Since ancient times, there has been no return from the abyss. Tian slumped in his chair, his mind blank. Li Wei was seriously injured and captured alive. Nameless died. Chapter 10-20. Should we report this matter to the Zhongxian Gu? Saiji asked. I have a feeling that those people's identities aren't simple. Long Xiang pondered for a moment before saying, I don't think it's necessary. The Zhongxian Gu has always been wary of the Dean. They hope that the Dean can represent prosperous origin continent and rise to power, but they don't want him to rise too quickly. Now that this matter has happened, they might not really care about our lives. Tian calmed down and said, Long Xiang is right. They only care about the teleportation gate, not our people. I'm afraid that if we tell them, we'll become more passive. Someone from the Fenglai Academy said, I also think that we shouldn't inform the Zhongxian Gu. After some discussion, everyone decided not to report this matter to the Zhongxian Gu and to carry out the rescue in private. The Fenglai Academy sent 500 disciples to the Demonic Academy, led by Vice Dean Yao He. On the Demonic Academy's side, Tian personally led 500 disciples. 12 days later, a total of 1,000 people from both sides entered the secret passage. At the bottom of the Myriad Calamities abyss, lava flowed down along with the terrain, forming large and small lava waterfalls. Finally, the lava flowed from all directions into a large lava lake. At the center of the lava lake was a huge red sphere. The surface of the sphere was already half liquefied, and bright red lava continuously flowed down from the surface of the sphere. Next to the huge sphere was a mass of red spiritual energy that looked like a huge bubble. The bubble was very close to the huge sphere, only about 3 to 4 meters away. If one took a closer look, they would discover that there was a figure wrapped within the bubble. This person's white hair fluttered in the heat waves, and he was completely naked. He was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, cultivating. Lu Chen was still alive. 12 days ago, Lu Chen had fallen into the Myriad Calamities abyss. During the fall, he had swallowed the strange flame bead and entered a state of selflessness, attempting to convert his chaos spiritual energy into the fire attribute. After absorbing part of the surrounding fire element spiritual energy, Lu Chen's chaos spiritual energy quickly converted into fire element spiritual energy. Finally, he managed to escape the calamity. However, although he did not die immediately, the huge red ball had a powerful force pulling Lu Chen. Lu Chen could resist the magma in the Earth's core, but he knew that if he were to be sucked into the sphere, his little flame affinity would not be able to resist the high temperature inside and he would be melted in the end. Lu Chen could only desperately resist the suction. At first, Lu Chen was constantly being pulled closer. Although the speed was not fast, Lu Chen was unable to break free. However, when Lu Chen was pulled a few dozen meters in front of the red sphere, he began to try to absorb the vast spiritual energy emitted by the sphere. Now, he finally stabilized the distance between him and the red sphere. It could be said that these 3 to 4 meters were the distance between life and death. At first, after trying many methods, Lu Chen discovered that only by absorbing this spiritual energy could he resist the constant pulling force. He entered a state of cultivation and continuously absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy. Lu Chen came to the conclusion that this pulling force was not a skill, but a strange phenomenon caused by the release of some kind of spiritual energy. Since that was the case, if he could absorb this spiritual energy, there was hope for him to escape from the myriad calamity abyss. When he was near the sphere, the fire's spiritual energy became even more violent. The intense heat waves were almost roasting people, and the spiritual energy was surging violently like a broken dam in the sea. Lu Chen's strength was not the strongest, but his mental cultivation method was undoubtedly the best in Jiutian. If Lu Chen had not used the chaotic celestial demon mental cultivation method and consumed the abnormal flame bead, his body would have exploded and he would have died if he had used other mental cultivation methods to forcibly absorb this spiritual energy. While resisting the pulling force, Lu Chen was also cultivating. This place was like a natural spiritual vein. Cultivating in the center of the spiritual vein, Lu Chen's spiritual energy increased at an extremely fast rate. At this critical moment, Lu Chen did not dare to stop cultivating for a moment. The spiritual energy he gained every minute reached an astonishing 500 points. It was as if Lu Chen was not cultivating, but the sphere was forcibly instilling spiritual energy into him. During these 10 days, Lu Chen's spiritual energy also soared crazily. In 10 days, his spiritual energy had increased to 7 million points. The total spiritual energy of Lu Chen's fighting soul had exceeded 12 million points. At the same time, Lu Chen's physical body was undergoing drastic changes in this extremely harsh environment. The Underworld's planet crystal core is transforming your body, the Underworld's planet crystal core. This fireball is, the planet crystal core. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Who would have thought that the planet crystal core was hidden under the myriad calamity abyss? Moreover, it was the planet crystal core of the entire sixth heaven of the underworld. The planet crystal core could cure Lu Chen's fatigue. Sure enough, Lu Chen found that his condition was undergoing earth-shaking changes while cultivating next to the planet crystal core. Physical attributes increased. Strength increased by 50 points. Agility increased by 50 points. Physique increased by 50 points. As long as Lu Chen cultivated for a minute, his physical attributes would increase by 50 points each. Lu Chen almost cried. How long had it been? Thanks to his fatigue condition, he could not increase his attributes. After coming to the sixth heaven for so long, apart from the emptiness of gods and demons' arm and the mutant dragon crystal, his strength had not increased at all. He was still a star-field great cultivator. However, today, his attributes had finally increased. Although it was only 50 points, it was more than 10 million points in the past. Physical spiritual energy increased by 10 points. Even without the extraction scroll, his spiritual power was still increasing at a fast rate. In fact, the extraction scroll was made by a high-level talisman master using a special method to extract spiritual energy from spirit stones. Naturally, there were other ways to increase one's spiritual energy, but they were extremely rare. It seemed that this giant fireball had such an ability. It can actually increase one's spiritual energy. Three-dimensional physical body limit increased by 10%, Lu Chen's original physical body limit was 15 times that of spiritual energy. Now that it was increased by 1%, it could reach 16.5 times. The underworld crystal core's effect is too strong. It actually directly strengthens the body. There was also the last attribute, which made Lu Chen overjoyed. Fatigue condition is weakened. Fatigue condition, physical and spiritual energy consumption increased by 8 times. Skills and elixirs cannot be used to recover. When using the pure flame spiritual pill, fatigue condition will disappear for 30 seconds and can be used once every 3 days. Although fatigue was not cured, it still consumed a lot of spiritual energy under normal circumstances, 9 times that of an ordinary person. However, the last sentence saved Lu Chen. By using the pure flame spiritual pill, he could get rid of fatigue condition for 30 seconds. For Lu Chen, who had almost forgotten what it felt like to be in a normal state, this 30 seconds of happiness came too suddenly. In more than 10 days, Lu Chen's spiritual energy increased by 150,000. All 3 dimensions increased by 750,000. His level finally rose from a star-field great cultivator that had not changed for 10,000 years to a 7-star great cultivator. The biggest increase was the battle soul's spiritual energy. From the original peak of 4.5 million, it increased by 8 million. His total spiritual energy broke through 13 million. Chapter 1021. Divine Demon Mental Cultivation Technique Level 6, can only be cultivated in the Divine Demon Symbiosis state of the 6th transformation and above. Gain 120 battle soul spiritual energy every minute. During the cultivation process, there is a small chance of gaining 10 spiritual energy. Lu Chen looked at his mantra that had just been upgraded to the 6th level and fell into deep thought. After the 6th level of the mental cultivation technique, there was a requirement for the level of the Divine Demon Symbiosis state. It required a Divine Demon Symbiosis state of the 6th transformation and above to cultivate. Now that he was in the 7th transformation of the Divine Demon Symbiosis state, it seemed that he could still hold on for a while, but what the hell was that small chance of gaining 10 spiritual energy? After cultivating for 10 days, although he did not necessarily pay attention to how much his spiritual energy increased, he did not feel that the mental cultivation technique increased his spiritual energy. Small chance, it was indeed a small chance. It was so small that it could be ignored. Divine Demon Set, exclusive, for void attack becomes an area of effect attack, when not converted to an area of effect attack, damage increases by 200%. Void Guard becomes an area of effect defense. The attack and defense range is determined by the maximum spiritual energy when the skill is activated. Lu Chen was stunned. The 4th exclusive had appeared. The explanation was simple, but it was still shocking. In other words, if he used the area of effect of void attack to break through the void, he could hit a large area. Without the need for an area of effect, the damage would increase by 2 times. Lu Chen suddenly felt that it was no wonder that the Divine Demon Life Reversing set was so abnormal. It was because the attributes of the set were too abnormal. Each equipment was stronger than the previous one. When Lu Chen's Divine Demon Mixed Yuan cultivation technique reached the 6th level, he was no longer afraid of the pulling force of the sphere. Without this strong pulling force, Lu Chen's cultivation speed began to slow down. On the 10th day, Lu Chen's physical body stopped increasing. The upper limit of his physical body attributes was fixed at 100% and did not move. In terms of battle soul spiritual energy, his cultivation speed had greatly decreased. Lu Chen also knew that he should not be able to get any more upgrades from the Underworld Crystal Core. The Underworld Crystal Core is even more powerful than the 5th Celestial Layer Planet Crystal Core. Lu Chen sighed. My physical body's strength and spiritual energy have all increased. My fighting soul's spiritual energy has increased by 8 million. With this kind of cultivation speed, it was unknown how many years others would need, but Lu Chen only used 10 days. 10 days have passed. There are still 4 to 5 days before the army of the dead makes their move. I can stay here and learn Raging Flames Incinerate the Heavens. Lu Chen took out the book. The Raging Flames Incinerate the Heavens had a total of 3 levels: Incinerate the Sea, Incinerate the Star, and Incinerate the Heavens. Burning Sea required a fire elemental affinity of 200. Lu Chen didn't know what his fire elemental affinity was. He was just trying to learn the skill. Learn Burning Sea. Your fire element affinity is 2844. You have successfully learned Burning Sea. Since your fire element spirit chi comes from the Earth's core, the skill has been renamed to Burning Sea of Earth Fire. My affinity is over 2800. Is this considered high? Lu Qin still remembered that Kong Lian Xian had said that he had only reached the first level of Burning Sea. He hurriedly looked at the requirements of Burning Star. Burning Star required a fire elemental affinity of 2000. He could learn it directly. Damn, this is awesome. Learn Burning Star. The second skill was also changed to Burning Star. He could learn it directly. Unfortunately, the last level, Burning Sky, required a fire elemental affinity of 20,000. Lu Chen was too far away from this value, so he temporarily gave up on learning it. After learning the first two levels of Raging Flames Incinerate the Heavens, Lu Chen was a little excited. After all, the only thing he wasn't good at was Prophet. Elemental Mage was also a branch of Prophet. Mastering this skill meant that Lu Chen was truly involved in all 9 major professions. Offensive elemental mages are known as long-range killing machines. No one in the 9 major professions can match their magic burst. No profession dares to give elemental mages too much time to prepare their skills. The only weakness is that elemental mages are too weak compared to other long-range professions. But I don't need to worry about this problem at all. Lu Chen smiled slightly. Floating in the air above the lava lake, Lu Chen took a deep breath. His hands formed into claws, and he lifted them up. 2 seconds later, Lu Chen fiercely raised his head and shouted, "Burning Sea of Earth Fire." Boom, 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 boom. The entire lava lake seemed to have been turned upside down. The viscous surface of the lake fiercely exploded upwards. The entire underground space was filled with lava, splashing several hundred meters high. It climbed up the surrounding rock walls and melted the rocks there. Countless drops of lava fell on Lu Chen's body, but Lu Chen wasn't affected in the slightest. The corner of Lu Chen's mouth rose slightly. As expected of the famous ultimate skill of air refinement. The power of the first level was already no small matter. The range of this move was extremely large. The temperature of the underworld's core lava was extremely high. This was lava that could melt souls. Unless one had a sufficient fire elemental affinity, an average person wouldn't be able to withstand it. At this moment, Lu Chen suddenly heard a rumbling sound coming from underground. It seemed that the Burning Sea of Earth Fire just now had triggered the activity of the lava deeper underground. Damn, it's fiercer than I imagined. Looks like I can't try Burning Star anymore. Otherwise, I might end up burying myself here. There were still a few days before the army of the dead would execute Tian Xian and the others. Lu Chen didn't immediately go out. He had just mastered the elemental mage skill, so he still needed to practice it. These few days, Lu Chen had been practicing Burning Sea of Earth Fire, especially how to use Formless in this move. After consuming too much spiritual energy, he continued to practice his mental cultivation method to replenish his spiritual energy. 2 seconds of charging time was too long. However, after many attempts, Lu Chen discovered that he could actually start charging Burning Sea of Earth Fire at the same time during close combat. He could then use it at the last moment to achieve a kind of pseudo-instant cast effect. After some small success, it was almost time. Let's go back up first. I don't know how long I'll have to fly. My physical strength might not be able to withstand it. When I rest midway, I'll encounter those monsters on the rock wall. It will inevitably waste some time. Thinking of this, Lu Chen spread his wings and prepared to fly into the sky. However, at this moment, the huge fireball in the middle of the lava lake suddenly shone brightly. The surrounding lava was quickly sucked in by it. The lava was like countless tentacles, rushing towards the huge fireball from all directions. Lu Chen suddenly felt a strong suction force. Not good, what's wrong with that thing? It seems to be fiercer than before. Not only was the lava being absorbed, but even the rocks were collapsing. More lava was being pulled out from the ground and rushed towards the fireball. The entire underground was about to collapse. Damn, is this thing crazy? Lu Chen's eyes were about to pop out. If this continued, the next time this thing sucked him in, he definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. Run. Run for your life before it takes shape. This was the only thought in Lu Chen's mind. Spreading his wings, Lu Chen rushed towards the exit of the abyss. Interestingly, it wasn't just Lu Chen who was running. The countless monsters living in the crevices of the rock wall also rushed out of the crevices and frantically fled towards the sky above. It seemed that they also knew that the fireball had undergone a huge change and couldn't stay here any longer. In this way, no one had the time to deal with Lu Chen. Lu Chen madly rushed through the gaps between the monsters. Not good, my physical strength can't keep up. After flying for more than 10 minutes, Lu Chen's physical strength was somewhat exhausted. He didn't want to activate soul body as one, yet, and it was even more impossible for him to use the 30 seconds of fatigue-free pure flame state. In a moment of desperation, Lu Chen grabbed the tail scale of a giant monster and hitched a ride. This giant monster was extremely fast, much faster than Lu Chen himself. After a few hours, Lu Chen finally saw the dusky red sky above his head. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly, and a trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. I'm finally back. Chapter 1022. Beside the cliff, a group of army of the dead was resting at the place where Lu Chen had jumped off the cliff. Speaking of which, the army of the dead was quite meticulous. They knew that Lu Chen couldn't have survived after jumping into the abyss of myriad calamities, but they still left people here to keep an eye on him. At this time, many people were standing beside the cliff, looking at the strange movement below in shock. What's going on down there? Do you feel it? The whole ground is shaking. How can we not feel it? Don't tell me that guy is still alive. How is that possible? Have you ever heard of someone coming up from the abyss of myriad calamities? There's a strong suction force down there. The lower you go, the stronger the suction force. As long as you're controlled by the suction force, you can't come up. At this time, a large black shadow rushed out of the cliff. Everyone hurriedly dodged. Then, thousands of black dragons rushed out of the cliff. In just a short while, at least hundreds of dragons rose into the sky. How did these guys come out of the black dragon's nest? Impossible. They can't leave the abyss of myriad calamities since the soul race banished them. How can they escape? No, something's wrong. It seems that the suction force has disappeared. As soon as they finished speaking, the black dragons that couldn't fly out of the abyss in time suddenly let out a sorrowful cry. Then, their bodies suddenly fell. Although they struggled desperately, they still fell down. These black dragons looked ferocious. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws, trying to grab something. They didn't even hesitate to grab their own brethren who had escaped from the suction force. Once the captured black dragons couldn't break free, they would also be pulled into the abyss. Seeing these black dragons struggling on the brink of death, not hesitating to kill their own kind, the Netherworld army was dumbfounded. What's going on? Can't the black dragons live in the abyss of myriad calamities? Why are they so afraid of returning to the abyss? At this height, the black dragons should be able to break free from the suction force, but it seems that the suction force of the abyss of myriad calamities is 100 times stronger than before. As long as these black dragons are pulled, they can't escape. I don't know if the strange movement just now was caused by these black dragons. The influence of the abyss of myriad calamities seems to have increased. We can even feel the suction force from here. It's getting stronger and stronger. Let's retreat and report to the spirit envoy. Yes. Lu Chen was currently lurking beside a black dragon. Having just experienced the madness of the black dragons, he could not help but gasp. The army of the dead did not know what was happening below, but Lu Chen knew very well that this was a race of life and death. The faster black dragons would have a chance to escape, while the slower ones would be pulled back into the abyss. This time, the crystal core was much stronger than before. Those black dragons that were captured would likely be directly sucked into the crystal core of the netherworld and be destroyed in both body and soul. Under such circumstances, those black dragons were so crazy and wanted to escape at all costs. Fortunately, Lu Chen had chosen a black dragon at the front. Otherwise, he would have been dragged back into the abyss by the black dragon at the back. The army of the dead sure is meticulous. It's already been more than 10 days, and there's still someone waiting for me here. Lu Chen snorted coldly. Due to the sudden change in the abyss of myriad calamities, the army of the dead had retreated. Lu Chen heaved a sigh of relief. Sitting on the black dragon, he looked back and saw that there were only 40 to 50 black dragons behind him. No way, so many black dragons escaped before, but now there are only 4 or 5 left. They were probably pulled into the abyss by their companions. The black dragon flew in the sky. Lu Chen did not know where it was going, so he immediately patted the black dragon that had escaped with him on its back. Thanks, but unfortunately, we're not going the same way. Goodbye. Lu Chen was about to leave the black dragon's back when an ancient voice suddenly sounded. How many years has it been? We finally left that damned place. Boy, you unintentionally destroyed that guy's dragon binding array and released us. It should be us black dragons who should say thanks. When I saw you fall into the abyss, I did not expect you to survive and change our fate. Lu Chen was shocked. Could it be that the black dragon was talking to him? I didn't mean to help you. It was just convenient. Lu Chen was not greedy for credit and said honestly. Sit tight. We'll land first. After saying this, the black dragon turned and entered a vast forest. The dozens of black dragons followed behind. Originally, this large group of black dragons would have instantly crushed a large area of the forest when they landed. However, as they swooped down, the black dragons quickly transformed into their human forms. A gentle spiritual energy lifted Lu Chen up, allowing him to land with the black dragon in human form. Lu Chen looked at these people. They were all dressed in black robes and looked similar to humans. There were both men and women, but they had dragon horns on their heads. The leader looked to be in his 40s. He threw a set of black clothes over. Put on your clothes first. Lu Chen suddenly remembered that he had not worn clothes for a while. The wild blood sword god had already melted in the earth's core. He could not bear to wear other clothes, so he simply remained naked. When he escaped, he did not have time to wear clothes, so he was still naked. Sorry, I've gotten used to this feeling recently. Lu Chen quickly went behind a tree to put on his clothes. This was a set of black clothes with golden patterns. The color was similar to Lu Chen's Descent of the Demon Lord, but the style was different. This set of clothes was slimmer. When your emptiness of gods and demons arm demonizes again, this set of golden supremacy underworld dragon will automatically tear open the left sleeve. When it returns to its original state, the golden supremacy underworld dragon will also return to normal. The black dragon man said. It seemed that he had seen Lu Chen's emptiness of gods and demons arm. Speaking of which, these guys were a race that could transform their bodies. Even their clothes could change shape. Lu Chen just needed such a set of clothes. Thank you. Are you black dragons or dragons? Lu Chen asked curiously. We are underworld dragons, the man said. Pure underworld dragon blood flows in our bodies, so we have the ability to transform into underworld black dragons. Then the man continued, in the abyss of myriad calamities, if we did not transform into underworld black dragons, we would not be able to resist the suction force. We would be sucked into the underworld's core and destroyed in both body and soul. We also could not escape the abyss of myriad calamities. When we fought the soul progenitor, we were sealed in the abyss of myriad calamities. If you had not triggered the revival of the underworld crystal core and inadvertently destroyed the dragon binding formation, I'm afraid we would have all been buried in the abyss of myriad calamities. Lu Chen furrowed his brows. It seems like the competition in the underworld is not inferior to the yang world. There are also people fighting and snatching here. Who knows how many fights have taken place to form the current situation of the 4 districts and the king of hell overseeing the underworld alone. Then what do you plan to do now? Take revenge? Lu Chen had a vague feeling that they could become his allies, so he asked tentatively. Revenge? No, it's been thousands of years. Our strength has deteriorated, and our fighting spirit has been worn away. We no longer have the heart to fight for hegemony. We no longer want to go back to that hell. Thousands of years is enough to wear away the hatred of an entire race. The Black Dragon man's gaze was complicated. Vicissitudes, relief, helplessness, and relief. Perhaps even he himself could not tell. Chapter 1023. Lu Chen frowned. Unfortunately, finding an ally seemed to be a lost cause. Human brat, after we escape this time, we will find a place to live in seclusion. This set of clothes was once the battle robe of our underworld Dragon King. After the Dragon King was defeated, he committed suicide to atone for his sins. If you don't care about his past, I will give it to you. Lu Chen looked at these underworld dragon clan. It seemed that they really did not have any fighting spirit. Inviting them to help him at this time was definitely hopeless. Alright, but I have a question to ask you all. Lu Chen said, do you all know about the underworld flower? Underworld flower? Why do you want to find that thing? I want to reincarnate my friends. Lu Chen said in astonishment. Their souls were not returned to the underworld. If they were returned to the underworld, they would not be able to reincarnate. The man said. No. Lu Chen said with certainty. If not, although theoretically there is a glimmer of hope, but, the underworld flower can cut off the soul's connection with the underworld. In other words, the underworld flower can completely let the soul wander outside. To the people of the underworld flower is actually the most severe punishment. If they are exiled to the outside world, they will become a lonely soul. In the yang world, the soul has almost no fighting power. It is very easy for cultivators to absorb it as spiritual energy. So, the underworld flower should be in the hands of the King of Hell Demon Lord. If you want to get it, I am afraid. Lu Chen slightly narrowed his eyes. The King of Hell Demon Lord. The opening of the underworld door must be his doing. Adding on the underworld flower, it seemed that his fate with the underworld strongest was beginning to inevitably intersect. How strong is the King of Hell Demon Lord? In your 6th heaven, the dead of all the continents will enter this underworld. Since ancient times, countless experts have fallen in the 6th heaven. There should be countless of them. The man said, excluding those who went to the 7th heaven, he alone rules the underworld. How strong do you think he is? Another woman said, let's put it this way. Unless the heaven domain boss comes out from Tong Tian Tower, in the 6th heaven, even those weak loose immortals will die if they meet him. Loose immortal? That's impossible. Lu Chen was still in disbelief. What's impossible about that? Do you think all loose immortals are very strong? According to your cultivation level, from human king to immortal ascension, you need to go through a heavenly tribulation. The heavenly tribulation is unimaginably terrifying. If 100 people go through the heavenly tribulation, there might not even be one person who can ascend. Many people would die during the tribulation, while some would survive, but their cultivation would be damaged to varying degrees. We're both loose immortals, but our strength is worlds apart. Unless he encounters those powerful loose immortals, Demon Monarch King of Hell's strength is no weaker than that of ordinary loose immortals. Lu Chen frowned. He had thought that loose immortals could rival super experts at the peak of the King realm. It turned out that there was such a big gap in strength among loose immortals. Lu Chen took a deep breath. There was no doubt that the name, King of Hell, was not given casually. That guy's strength was indeed extraordinary. Little brother, the news that we escaped from the abyss of calamities will soon spread. We must leave here immediately. Good luck. With that, the group of underworld dragons quickly fled into the forest and disappeared. Lu Chen shook his head. From the information he had obtained, it seemed that it would be difficult for him to stop the underworld gate from opening with his current strength. Forget it, let's save Wuxia and the others first. Lu Chen immediately turned on the compass and set off in the direction of the City of Dead Souls. A total of 1,000 people from the Demonic Academy and the Foam Lai Academy had arrived at the Phoenix Cry Plain. They're not from another continent. This is the underworld. Tian ordered everyone to stay alert at all times. Yao He nodded. I didn't expect that the teleportation gate led to the underworld. This is simply unbelievable. A sea of clouds frowned. If Wu Xian and the others were captured by the people of the underworld, then we're in trouble. To them, we're like spirits in the yang world. We can replenish our spiritual energy, but we can also become puppets. Many disciples of the Divine Demon Academy were extremely anxious when they heard a sea of clouds' words. Especially Wu Xian and Skyfall's friends. When they thought that they might be made into puppets, they felt both disgusted and worried. At this moment, a group of more than 800 people appeared on the other side of the road. Seeing these people, a sea of clouds immediately ordered everyone to stay alert. The other party's reaction was similar to theirs. The people behind them all stopped and stared at the people of the Divine Demon Academy and Foam Lai Academy with full vigilance. Those people don't seem to be ghosts. Tian looked at them and said curiously, there are other cultivators here. A sea of clouds, Yao He, don't make a move first. I'll go forward and scout. Tian, be careful. Tian walked towards the other party and shouted, which academy are you from? Seeing that he was the only one approaching and had the same doubts, one of them also walked forward. We're from Celestial Fortress. You're not from the Azure Pond continent? Azure Pond continent? No, we're from Prosperous Origin continent. Tian sensed that the other party didn't seem to have any ill intentions, so he asked further, why did you enter the underworld? Some of our people were captured by them, so they informed us to come and save them. Tian was relieved. Did you receive the Shadow Stone? Yes. Can someone come forward and check? The few people on the other side discussed for a moment, and one of them walked forward. Although both sides had battled Shadow Stones and knew that Lu Chen and Ironwood had fought together, both sides were very cautious in the other world. Only when both sides took out Shadow Stones to check did both sides completely let down their guard. So you're the sect of these people in the Shadow Stone. Since we're all on the same side, let's save them together. A white-bearded old man from Celestial Fortress said, I'm He Xing, the Pavilion Master of World Edge Pavilion in Celestial Fortress. Those people are my disciples. Tian also cupped his fists and introduced a sea of clouds, Yao He, and the others to He Xing. After the two sides met, the total number of people had reached more than 1,800. It looked like a powerful team. They marked the meeting place on the Shadow Stone. It should be not far from here, He Xing said. A sea of clouds nodded. Then let's hurry up. Sure enough, after crossing a slope, the first thing they saw was an open area. There were 10 iron pillars, and each iron pillar had a person tied to it. Wu Xian, Skyfall. Linger, Ironwood. Everyone recognized their own people, except for Li Wei. All 10 of them were tied up with chains and could not move. Behind the 10 iron pillars, there was a long battle formation in an orderly manner. There were 20 to 30,000 of them. At the front of the battle formation, there were thousands of huge hellhounds with fire under their feet. They stared at the people with their mouths open and drooling. Ironwood saw that the people from Celestial Fortress were coming to save them. His eyes were filled with pain, and he shouted, "Don't worry about us, run." The others were also shouting, "Run. You're not their match." 3 people walked out from the dark army of the City of Dead Souls. The ghost-masked woman smiled. "What are you thinking? Run. I'm sorry, but none of you can escape." As soon as she said that, behind the 3 academies, a large number of troops rushed out from the hills on the left and right. They were surrounded. Chu Tian narrowed his eyes and said to Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan, "Hey, this time, I'm afraid we'll have to fight for our lives." "Don't die, you too. They killed my teacher, they deserve to die." Xiao Zhan's eyes were filled with anger. Yi Fan pursed his lips. "If not for the Dean, I, Yi Fan, would have died in the hands of the Purple Sky Palace. Today, even if I have to risk my life, I will avenge the Dean." Chapter 1024. The Netherworld army was no longer satisfied with catching small fishes. This time, they had attracted close to 2,000 people to join them. The people from Celestial Fortress were very strong. They didn't panic at all when facing an army of tens of thousands. He Xing snorted, "Hey, I don't care who you are or what your goal is. I'm warning you, let them go now." The skinny man smiled, "Tisk, tsk, tsk. You don't even know that you're about to die. You want us to let them go? Even in your world, killing you is as easy as lifting a finger. Not to mention, this is the underworld. I'm bored anyway. It's been a long time since I've met a decent opponent. Let's play some more. Ding Quang, let them see how weak they are." A man from the demon race walked out from the army of the dead with a scythe in his hand. He cupped his fist at the skinny man. "Yes, Ding Quang. Try not to kill them. After all, we need them to replenish our oxygen reserves." "Yes, Ding Quang." After saying that, the man walked towards them alone. A middle-aged man from Celestial Fortress walked towards He Xing, a sea of clouds, and Yao He. He said, "This guy wants to fight one-on-one. I'll go and meet him first." He Xing nodded, "All right, let's test the opponent's strength first. Drifting Goblet, be careful. Ironwood's warning isn't without reason." "Okay." After saying that, Drifting Goblet walked towards the opposite side. Both sides sent out 1 person each. The 2 people walked faster and faster. "How dare you touch my people from Celestial Fortress? I'll let you know the power of Celestial Fortress." Drifting Goblet roared, "I, Drifting Goblet, will accompany you in this battle." Ding Quang snorted, "Who told you that I'm here to fight one-on-one? You think you can stop me? You're dreaming." As the 2 spoke, they sped up towards each other. At the same time, they activated many buffs and domain skills. In an instant, the 2 of them entered the soul-body fusion state. In the next moment, the 2 of them activated their teleportation skills at the same time. From hundreds of meters away, they were already fighting. Ding Quang seemed to specialize in close combat. He instantly swung his scythe. On the other side, Drifting Goblet was also a close combat pugilist. He wielded 2 swords and attacked with both hands. As soon as the 2 of them exchanged blows, Yun Hai could tell that both of them were combat experts. His movements were as smooth as flowing water, his timing was precise, and his moves were varied. Tai Hao Field. Lu Go growled. Tai Hao Golden Saber, Space-Splitting Slash. All of a sudden, Drifting Goblet threw out dozens of blade strikes, each of them shining with light, the dozens of blade shadows mixed in with the normal attacks, reaching perfection. Formless. Yao He's eyes widened. The strength of the people from Celestial Fortress was too strong. Any random person could actually use Formless. However, Ding Quang easily dodged the saber chi and landed behind Drifting Goblet. Drifting Goblet's reaction was extremely fast. He turned around and slashed out a set of saber techniques. Ding Quang snorted coldly. Naive. If it wasn't for the fact that I didn't want to kill you, you would already be a dead man. Suddenly, a black shadow appeared behind Drifting Goblet. The scythe in his hand swept towards Drifting Goblet's lower body. Just as Drifting Goblet jumped up, the scythe's blade suddenly chopped at Drifting Goblet's arms. The blade's appearance was too strange. The blade was supposed to sweep towards Drifting Goblet's lower body, but why did it suddenly appear in front of his arms? Even though Drifting Goblet was very experienced, this was the first time he had encountered such a strange situation. Space. Skill. Suddenly, Drifting Goblet reacted. At least you have some foresight. Unfortunately, you found out too late. Ding Quang sneered. He raised his blade and chopped off both of Drifting Goblet's arms. Crane's eyes widened. This. How does this guy know a space skill? Tian was also shocked. Nameless also had a similar method. For example, the triple door could be used together with a certain skill. He could use the triple door skill to teleport to a faraway place. However, that was just a method to simulate a spatial skill. Compared to a real spatial skill, regardless of speed or fusion, it was not on the same level. Even so, Lu Chen was still able to achieve miraculous feats by using this skill. From this, one could infer just how terrifying a real space skill was. Drifting Goblet looked at his severed arms and stared at Ding Quang in horror. You. How did you break through my War Soul's defense and cut off my arms? Impossible. My War Soul's defense can't be useless. I'm sorry. Your War Soul can increase your stats, but my underworld spiritual energy can ignore your War Soul's defense. Ding Quang glanced at Drifting Goblet. Actually, Theo the Great's 9 stars should be at your peak. You're much stronger than Ironwood. Unfortunately, you're still far from being my match. Watch carefully. I'm going to charge into your army of 2,000. After saying this, Ding Quang did not stop. He teleported and charged towards the three-way army. Come, whether you're a genius or an expert, come and play with me. The power of the space skill was displayed to the extreme by Ding Quang. Every time he attacked, he could hit someone in front of him. However, if he was not careful, a student who was distracted would suffer. Damn, this spatial skill is too overpowered. Xiao Zhan's face was filled with anger. He did not have a chance to find Ding Quang's main body. However, he still had to be on guard against the scythe. Chu Tian and Yi Fan were beside Xiao Zhan. Don't be distracted at this time. That guy is too strong. Just now, the peak 9 stars Theo the Great was defeated by him in an instant. There were more experts on the Celestial Pavilion side. They quickly attacked and tried to stop Ding Quang from charging into their formation. However, Ding Quang's skill allowed him to teleport. It was impossible to guard against it. In the 10 seconds that Ding Quang had charged over, dozens of people had already been injured by the scythe. Their formation was about to be destroyed by Ding Quang alone. Finally, He Xing could not take it anymore and shouted, "Light's fury." A strong beam of light shot over, illuminating the heaven and earth in a bright white. This spiritual power was extremely concentrated. Even Ding Quang did not dare to take it head-on. He was forced to retreat. Elemental Mage. So strong. I was careless. I should have attacked that old man first. Ding Quang stared at He Xing. After being forced to retreat, Ding Quang was not convinced. He stood up and said coldly, "Hey, old man, it's hard for you to recover your spiritual power in the underworld. Using this skill must have consumed a lot of your spiritual power. Let's see how many more times you can use Light's Fury." After saying this, Ding Quang was about to charge again. Shield of Light. He Xing raised his hands and a shield of light appeared around everyone, protecting everyone from the Celestial Fortress, the Demonic Academy, and the Fenglai Academy. "Senior brother He Xing, we can't recover our spiritual power here. The Shield of Light consumes too much of our spiritual power," a Celestial Fortress member said anxiously. He Xing shook his head, his eyes blazing like torches. "There's nothing we can do even if we consume too much energy. This time, we've fallen into their trap. Our strength has been greatly reduced in the underworld, while they're like fish in water. We have no chance of winning this battle. We can only wait for the other branches of the Celestial Fortress to come and help." Elixirs. Right, elixirs can also restore spiritual power. A sea of clouds hurriedly said to He Xing, "Senior He Xing, let's gather all the elixirs we have. Maybe we can hold on a little longer." He Xing nodded. "That's all we can do for now." Ding Quang attacked several times outside the Shield of Light, but it seemed that the elements just happened to counter each other. He could not break through the Shield of Light. "Damn it, it's a light elemental mage. If it were another element, I would have killed you in minutes. Weren't you so arrogant just now? Why are you suddenly acting like a coward? Let's see how long you can last." Ding Quang cursed outside, but none of the three forces stepped out of the Shield of Light. "Ding Quang, come back." In the distance, the skinny soul called out. Ding Quang also knew that these people would not come out now, so he carried the scythe and dragged Drifting Goblet back to report. They tied Drifting Goblet to the 11th iron pillar. Not long after, Ding Quang stepped out of the ranks and walked to the 11 iron pillars. He said to the allied forces, "You want to waste time, right? Sure, we are very hospitable. We can't wait to welcome more cultivators to our underworld to take a look. The spirit envoy said that I did well and rewarded me with a yang bun. These 3 little ones are all the best, so I don't dare to choose. But these 8 old ones, which one should I choose? Tell me, who wants to be sucked dry by me?" Ding Quang looked at Ironwood and the others, his eyes full of ridicule. Suddenly, Ding Quang jumped in front of Ironwood and stabbed his fingers into his head. "I choose you. Yang Qi, let me have a good taste." Chapter 1025. Ironwood's mind quickly withered. Looking at the nearly 2,000 people in front of him, he used the last of his strength to say, "Yes, no, rise," then his body quickly shriveled up, and in a moment, he was a dried corpse. "Big brother!" Omen and the others roared at the top of their lungs. "Uncle!" Linger was already sobbing. If it weren't for her, her father and the others wouldn't have entered the underworld, and her uncle wouldn't have been killed. The people in the underworld didn't just consume Yang Qi, the souls of those who died here would also dissipate. Ding Quang pulled his fingers out of Ironwood's skull and licked the blood on his fingers with a satisfied look. "Hee, delicious. People of Celestial Fortress, why are you looking at me like that? Do you want to kill me? He's your big brother. It seems that he took good care of you, but I've already killed him. He didn't even have the chance to enter the underworld, and you can't do anything." Ding Quang turned around and roared at the 2,000 people from the 3 academies. "Could it be that you want to watch your companions die tragically and still hide in your laughable turtle shell? It doesn't matter. You can't escape anyway. It's better if more people come to save you." Ding Quang turned around leisurely under the angry gazes of the crowd. "Don't worry. We'll take over the Yang world in the end, and all of you will have the same fate. After that, we'll execute one person every hour. It'll be a good show for you to watch before you die. This time, the disciples of Celestial Fortress were completely enraged. It's just death. The Celestial Fortress has never been humiliated like this. Pavilion Master, let us out and let me kill to my heart's content. Senior Brother Ironwood. I'll kill them. We can't wait for reinforcements from the other pavilions. Pavilion Master, why don't we give it our all? He Xing and the others were furious as they watched Ironwood die in front of their eyes. The sorrow in his heart was like thunder, but he was no ordinary disciple. He was the Pavilion Master. He knew that the Shield of Light was the last hope to stop the army of the dead. If they fought now, they had almost no chance of winning. But if they could wait for reinforcements, they might have a chance of survival. The people who came this time were all elites of the World's Edge Pavilion. If they were all killed, the World's Edge Pavilion would only exist in name. Shut up, all of you. He Xing roared. If you go out now, you'll die. It's impossible for me to trade your lives for the lives of others. Yi Tian looked at He Xing. Fortunately, He Xing was rational enough. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stood a chance. The skinny spirit envoy also heard He Xing's words. He smiled and said, "You are so naive. Do you think that no one can break the Shield of Light? There are still illusions." As soon as he finished speaking, a blade shadow suddenly appeared in front of him and shot directly towards the Shield of Light. The black blade shadow cut through the side of the Shield of Light, and He Xing spat out a mouthful of blood. Everyone looked at the skinny spirit envoy in shock. Just now, they didn't even see him make a move, but he had finished drawing his blade. The blade light even hurt He Xing directly. How horrible his strength was. If that blade light had been aimed at the Shield of Light, the consequences would have been unimaginable. What realm are you in? He Xing tried his best to support himself and looked at the spirit envoy in shock. It's okay to tell you. I'm at the 2-star Ghost King realm. Well, I've fought with many masters in the Yang world. It's not difficult to kill a few 5-star Ghost Kings here. The spirit envoy said leisurely. The underworld was advantageous to the souls of the dead, and the Yang world was advantageous to the cultivators. But in a fair environment, this guy could surpass the underworld. And he could easily kill a few at a time. Now you know, I'm just playing with you because I'm bored. Where did your hope come from? Where did the opportunity come from? The attack of the skinny spirit envoy was like a heavy punch, which made the people of Celestial Fortress and Fenglai Holy Academy tremble. Among the disciples of Celestial Fortress, some of them even began to lose their fighting spirit. Their faces were pale, and their fingers were trembling, but they were still holding on. Will we be sucked dry too? What are you talking about? Don't shake the morale of the army. Senior brother, I'm just a little scared. The disciples of Fenglai Holy Academy were even more so. Many of the female disciples' eyes were red. Where's Master Li Wei? Why don't I see Master Li Wei? Could it be that she's already been killed? I've never seen Master Li Wei's real strength. She's known as the most powerful person in Fenglai Holy Academy. Could it be that even she, the skinny spirit envoy's attack broke the psychological defense of many people? Except for one academy. Chu Tian stared at the spirit envoy. This guy should be the strongest opponent he had ever met. But there seemed to be 2 people who were as strong as him, or even stronger. The 2 spirit envoys stood beside him at the beginning, but they didn't say anything. Usually, those who jumped around at the beginning were the weak ones. The strong ones must be at the end. Should I use that move? What if I can't control it after I use it? He looked sideways at Yi Fan and Xiao Zhan. Both of them had the same dignified look. Then he looked at the people of the Demonic Academy. Everyone looked dignified and silent. The people of the Demonic Academy were all geniuses. But geniuses in Jiutian were different from geniuses in the general sense. In Zhoutian, geniuses didn't mean people who were stronger than others without hard work. The geniuses here were all people who had gone through a lot of battles. Only then could they get better opportunities than others, and reach a higher realm at a very young age. The more they experienced, the calmer they became. A sea of clouds suddenly said, "This battle may be your last battle. You don't need to hold back anymore. I'm sorry, it's us who led you into a desperate situation." Yi Fan, who was always a man of few words, suddenly said, "Uncle A Sea of Clouds, since we joined the Demonic Academy, we have been members of the Demonic Academy. We can still distinguish right from wrong. The Dean died in order to save his disciple. If we were the ones who entered the secret passage, the Dean would also enter the underworld without hesitation. With such a Dean, with such an academy, we have nothing to complain about. It's just death. Why should a real man be afraid of life and death? All we want is to settle our grudges. The Dean is Yi Fan's teacher. We can't live under the same sky as him. There's no reason for us to retreat." On the Fenglai Academy's side, Ronger was among them. She looked at Yi Fan from afar, the target in her heart. When she was defeated by Yi Fan, Ronger hated Yi Fan to the core. But now, after hearing Yi Fan's words, she realized that she had been paying special attention to that guy not only because of his outstanding strength. If that guy didn't die, he would definitely become the most dazzling star. Well said. Xiao Zhan also stood up. Junior brothers and sisters, today is the battle of life and death for our demonic academy. Back then, Uncle A Sea of Clouds said that if you want to defy the heavens, you have to become a god fiend. Today, take out your trump cards and fight for your fellow disciples, fight for the god fiend, and fight for the Dean. Everyone from the Divine Devil Academy had been suppressing their battle intent for a long time, and in the extreme adversity, they finally erupted at this moment. Senior brother, there's no need to say more. We're not afraid of death. You dare to touch our Dean? Touch our God-fiend disciple? Are we just going to let this go? With me here, it's impossible. So what if it's the underworld? Anyone who touches a God-fiend, even if it's the 3 realms or the 6 realms, will be killed. Chapter 1026. Celestial Fortress was dumbfounded. Why are they all so hot-tempered? Didn't they say they're from the lower house? Why do I feel like they're even more powerful than Immortal Academy? Demonic Academy, what kind of academy is it? A Sea of Clouds and Yi Tian looked at each other and nodded in tacit understanding. A Sea of Clouds walked to Crane Walker and said, "Senior Crane Walker, I'm afraid we're doomed this time. Instead of being humiliated like this, why don't we go out and kill to our heart's content?" Crane Walker was speechless. It was one thing for the students of Divine Demon to be like this, but even the teachers were like this. Couldn't they take it? A Sea of Clouds said, "The strength of the underworld is far beyond our imagination, and it's not something we can fight against. This place is not connected to the outside world, and we can't send messages to the outside world. We can't warn anyone not to come here. Instead of waiting for help here, why don't we kill our way out? If we can escape, we can inform the others." Crane Walker finally understood that a Sea of Clouds and the others hadn't completely given up hope, but they were more inclined to look for opportunities in battle. The Withered Spirit Envoy had proven that they could break through the shield of light. In that case, it was better to fight with all they had. Finally, Crane Walker nodded. "You too, today's Demonic Academy has left a deep impression on me. If we have a chance to escape, I hope we can keep in touch." A Sea of Clouds smiled. The fact that Celestial Immortal Pavilion can send 1,000 people to rescue us shows that Celestial Fortress values their disciples very much. This is the same for us Divine Demon and Phoenix. If there's a chance in the future, we must communicate more. Crane Walker looked at Yao He, and Yao He nodded. At this point, there's no other way out. I just hope that no matter whose disciple escapes, you can inform the other two academies not to enter the underworld. Also, tell the outside world about the underworld's ambition. This matter is even more important. Of course. Crane Walker nodded. The leaders of the academies passed down the order, and then Crane Walker removed the shield of light. The army of the dead saw that they had given up on defense, and immediately became excited. As soon as the withered spirit envoy raised his hand, the tens of thousands of soldiers instantly quieted down. Why didn't you continue to stay in your turtle shells? He Xing said coldly, we've changed our mind. Celestial Fortress will settle the score with you for killing our disciples. Oh, really? Looks like you've thought it through and don't want to be humiliated anymore. How boring. It looks like the game is going to end soon. No, I haven't played enough. Ding Quang, Yazi, White Ghost, Rainbow Demon. The spirit envoy called out 4 names, and the 4 experts stepped forward. We'll keep them company. The spirit envoy said as he walked back to the army. Don't kill these vessels. Just make them half dead. Yes, Witheredwood spirit envoy. The 4 of them accepted the order and stood in front of the 11 iron pillars, looking coldly at the 2,000-strong army. Trash, come on. Grandpa and the other 3 will play with you. 4 against 2,000. This infuriated the disciples. Tian said angrily, nameless, Tian is here to avenge you. Soul and body as one. At this moment, a man suddenly rushed in front of Tian, give me your life. Tian took a closer look and saw that the first one to rush up was Yi Fan. Then, Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan rushed forward at the same time. These 3 guys were more active than anyone else in a fight. They took the lead and rushed to the front of the demonic academy. Grey Crow, Black Armor King, and Bai Yi didn't show any weakness. With a loud bang, Yi Fan's sword hit Ding Quang's side. Ding Quang narrowed his eyes slightly, how dare a 2-star Theo the Great be so arrogant in front of me? As soon as he finished his words, 2 sword shadows came at him at the same time. You're wrong. It's 3. Xiao Zhan and Chu Tian attacked at the same time. The 3 cooperated very well, without any gap. As soon as a master attacked, Ding Quang felt that the angle of their attacks and the strength of their spiritual power were different from that of many people he had met before. There was a set of moves within moves, and their spiritual power was endless. These 3 guys were very strong, but their levels were low. If they were given more time, they would become hidden dangers. Death God Space. Ding Quang's figure disappeared on the spot. Then, the scythe appeared in front of the 3 of them. That guy used a spatial skill to attack the 3 of them at the same time. Rakshasa Gate, 18 stone gates. Chu Tian activated his skill, and 18 giant stone gates rose from the ground, blocking their line of sight. After the 18 stone gates were erected, they began to rise and fall. Under the influence of the giant stone gates, their line of sight was sometimes blocked and sometimes clear, making the battle even more unpredictable. With Ding Quang's line of sight blocked, Yi Fan's group dodged at the same time. The 3 of them quickly separated and hid in the stone gate array. Black Pin Divine Transformation, Demonic Wind Ghost Shadow. Black Pin Divine Transformation, Astral Wind Sword Intent. Yi Fan suddenly appeared behind Ding Quang and sent out several fierce sword chi. Ding Quang reacted quickly and dodged the Death God Space again. This time, when he appeared between 2 stone gates, a flame suddenly shot out from above his head. Xiao Zhan was actually waiting nearby. Strange flame. Seeing Xiao Zhan's flame, Ding Quang's eyes widened and he quickly dodged again. This stone gate village could actually restrain Ding Quang's spatial attack, and Yi Fan's group was beginning to reverse the situation. A sea of clouds frowned, that brat Chu Tian wants to compete with Ding Quang's reaction speed. Long Xiang also said, that guy's spatial skill is hard to deal with, but even if he uses it, he still needs to use his line of sight to determine his position. The 18 stone gates move irregularly, making it impossible for him to determine Chu Tian's position. It's like Chu Tian has divided the space into smaller areas, greatly restricting Ding Quang's spatial skill. Tian couldn't help sucking in a breath, these kids are really too strong. The three of them are temporarily suppressing Ding Quang. Grey Crow and the other two were entangled with Yazi. The three of them cooperated better than Yi Fan's group. The Black Armored King was the tank, Bai Yi was the healer in the array, and Grey Crow was the main attacker and the secondary controller. The Feng Lai Academy's side couldn't help but look at the Demonic Academy in a new light. How laughable. Romer shook her head. Back then, we wanted to slaughter the celestial and demon rankings. To be able to fight with so many super experts, these people are really too strong. The people from Celestial Fortress were also shocked. A mere lower house disciple was actually this strong. Their group of 6 had pinned down 2 experts, including Ding Quang, who was the most difficult to deal with. He Xing's eyes widened and he shouted, "My Celestial Fortress can't compare to a lower house disciple. Take down the other 2. As soon as he said this, 6 people charged out of Celestial Fortress and pounced on White Ghost and Rainbow Demon. The battle had officially begun. Chapter 1027. In the distance, the Deadwood Spirit Envoy looked at the several disciples of the Divine Magic Academy, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. This Divine Magic Academy is a bit interesting, the 2 caught are like little foxes, I didn't expect that they have so many disciples with good potential. The ghost-masked woman smiled, they're really tender and delicious. The fat Spirit Envoy narrowed his eyes, Yiksha, don't think too much. After catching the people of the Divine Demons, it's best to give them to the Soul King. I think they're good materials. The woman sneered, so what if I suck a few of them dry? I can't wait to enjoy the delicious food. The dead tree saw his 2 companions arguing again and said, don't argue, Yiksha, are you afraid that the Soul King won't reward you? The 2 of them snorted coldly. The fat Spirit Envoy said, Dead tree, you've played enough. This is just a small test. The team has been training for so long, we can't just let them watch. Before the Soul King comes back, we must send this batch of top-quality goods. The dead tree nodded, when will the Soul King come back? The 3 Ghost Kings came back from the King of Hell's palace the day before yesterday to discuss releasing the 10 billion souls of the Eternal Soul Palace and expanding the army of the dead. They should be back soon. Yiksha narrowed his eyes, the Eternal Soul Palace is open. It seems that the war is imminent. The dead tree said, let's start early, I can't wait. Well, since the Soul King is coming back, I won't play anymore. Army of the dead, listen to my order. Capture the enemy alive. After saying that, the dead tree raised the Army of the Dead flag and waved it down. Tens of thousands of Army of the Dead, finally waiting for the order to attack, madly rushed to the 3 academies' battle formation. A sea of clouds and the others saw the Army of the Dead charging around and knew that the decisive battle was imminent. Everyone was ready, using all kinds of soul-body fusion, domain, battle pet puppets, and no longer holding back. A sea of clouds sighed. At the very beginning, the Demonic Academy had been a lone and nameless commander without an army. But now, it had over 1,000 genius students. Great teachers from all over gathered here, and they were developing in an increasingly better direction. However, who would have thought that a disciple's unintentional discovery would actually cause the fall of this academy that was filled with hope? It was truly fate making fools of people. Nameless, thank you for bringing this old man on this incredible journey. A sea of clouds took out his wine gourd and took a big gulp. He then took out a voice transmission talisman and said, Nameless, are you still alive? No one has been spared from the myriad tribulation abyss since ancient times, but I don't believe that you've fallen just like that. If you're still alive, come save the students. Soul and body as one. A sea of clouds shouted angrily. At the same time, he raised his wine pot and took a big gulp. God of wine possession. Tian turned to look at a sea of clouds. It had been a long time since his best friend had battled, let alone his divine wine soul body. Old Hai, I never thought that you and I would have the opportunity to fight side by side. Give me a sip too. Tian shouted. A sea of clouds tossed the wine pot over. We can lose our lives, but we can't go without wine. Come, old E, we can't lose to these young juniors. Tian threw his head back and laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha, old Hai, the other academies can still count on reinforcements. How can we only count on a dead star field great cultivator? A sea of clouds also laughed. Ha ha ha, I've already ordered that if we don't come out, Lan Ji will report this matter to Zhongxin Gu. The other disciples are not allowed to enter this place. As for why I'm counting on that guy. Ha ha ha, I don't have a choice. A sea of clouds couldn't help but stop smiling. If he's still alive, he'll definitely come. Tian walked to a sea of clouds and stopped smiling. He couldn't hide the sadness in his eyes. He handed the wine pot to a sea of clouds. Yes, in just a month, all of us gods and demons trusted that guy. I don't envy others when they have thousands of soldiers and horses. It's enough for us gods and demons to have him alone. It's a pity. Suddenly, Tian's eyes burned with flames. If we don't take revenge, we're not worthy of being gods and demons. Kill. A sea of clouds shouted angrily and rushed toward the army of the dead. Lu Chen was rushing toward the plains of the dead. The black dragons had led him a little too far away. Damn, how far is it? Lu Chen looked at the underworld compass, his face crumbling. These black dragons of the underworld had no intention to fight at all. They ran so far away the moment they came out. At this moment, he suddenly received a voice transmission. Lu Chen was surprised. The underworld couldn't send voice transmissions to the Yang world, so the only person who could send him a voice transmission was someone in the underworld. The voice transmission was from a sea of clouds. Nameless, are you still alive? The abyss of myriad calamities. No one has survived since ancient times. But I still don't believe you're dead. If you're still alive, come to the plains of the dead and save the disciples. The voice transmission talisman also recorded the chaotic sounds of the surrounding battlefield. The surroundings were filled with shouting and killing. Someone's voice was especially prominent. Senior brother. I'll fight you bastards to the death. There was no doubt that the demonic academy had come to the underworld. At this moment, they were already fighting the army of the dead. Some people were already, seriously injured. This time, the army of the dead was prepared. Moreover, it was a large-scale hunt, so there must be experts overseeing it. Thinking of the terrifying power of the army of the dead, Lu Chen's eyes widened. They're here. The map showed that he was still dozens of miles away from the plains of the dead, but at this moment, he couldn't care less about conserving his strength. Divine Demon Symbiosis. God of War Possession. Demon Transformation. Place of Death. Dragon Blood Boil. Lu Chen directly activated all kinds of enhancement skills. 3 lives reincarnation. The skill cooldown was cancelled. Infinite night instant shadows. With a loud bang, a huge crater appeared where Lu Chen was originally standing. A black figure suddenly disappeared from where he was standing. The battle on the plains of the dead was at a stalemate. Logically speaking, the demonic academy was the weakest of the 3 academies, but these monsters had endless tricks up their sleeves. All kinds of elemental attacks dazzled the eyes. They also had the most rare battle pets and puppets. The disciples of the other 2 academies couldn't help but be secretly shocked. How did these guys have so many treasures? And the quality was also extremely high. Was this something that a disciple of the lower house should have? Moreover, none of the divine demon disciples were weak in actual combat. Their attacks were unexpected, and their movements were extremely fast. For a moment, they became the ones that hurt the underworld the most. However, no matter how monstrous the disciples of the demonic academy were, there was one thing that couldn't be changed. This was the underworld. Their spiritual energy couldn't be replenished. Even if they had the ability to quickly recover their spiritual energy, it was essentially to absorb spiritual energy from the surroundings. However, the energy of the underworld was incompatible with their attributes, so there was no way to convert it. After all, the divine demon disciples' levels were low. Being able to hurt the underworld meant that their spiritual energy consumption was greater. After a long time, the divine demon disciples couldn't hold on any longer. Feng Lai had sent out elite disciples, but speaking of which, their actual combat ability was inferior to the divine demon disciples. Celestial Fortress was the strongest, but they also received special treatment from the army of the dead. The defense line of 2,000 people gradually began to shrink inward. The situation was getting worse for the three academies. At this moment, Grey Crow, Black Armor King, and Bai Yi screamed at the same time. Arg! The three members of Grey Crow's team were thrown more than 10 meters away and couldn't get up. Yazzie sneered, "In front of my underworld critical strike, there is no meat shield to speak of. As long as you fight with me, regardless of whether you are attacking me or being attacked by me, you will be stacked with underworld critical strike. Humph, when I fight with you, I can make countless mistakes, but you can't even make one." Senior. Yi Fan saw Yazzie shooting a hidden weapon at Black Armor King. He was so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He hurriedly shot out a shadow sword to protect himself. However, at this moment, a blade suddenly flashed behind him. The Grim Reaper's scythe doesn't only rely on your eyes to determine the location. Your voice gave you away. A voice came from behind Yi Fan. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.